women are actually taking much more of the masculine energy. And a lot of the guys are checking out because they don't have masculine power to say, hey, here's what I need. And when you get that into a relationship, that's when things don't start to work too well.
Guys aren't going to get their act together, even if they put all the work into probably they're in their early to mid 30s.
Mm-hmm. A lot of what's happened with men in recent times, you're right, is that we're lacking purpose and direction.
Nothing comes for free. There's always going to be some sort of a give and take.
The fitness wellness industry is so competitive. You can be successful in that field. You can be successful almost anywhere. Being the best trainer isn't that important. Being more attached and interested in how do you service the people that are in front of you. If you can do that, you write your own paycheck.
Well, I am happy to be back after this 1 month hiatus. It's been an incredible journey for me, doing some great things in the city with APEC, and I'm happy to get into that with anybody who has questions about that. But back to the podcast now. I'm excited to have on Nick Palladino, or is it Nick Palladino-King?
Nick Palladino-King.
Nick Palladino-King, who is an owner of a gym called Tribe San Francisco here in San Francisco. He's got a lot of great insights on what it takes to build a business, what it's like being in the fitness industry, and overall, we both agree on this part here, the issue of men's health and pretty much men's mental health in the world that a lot of us don't talk about. It's not something that society encourages us to talk about, but there are things on there that we both see and we try to handle them in our own way. So I'm really excited to get into that. Before we get into everything here, why don't you give the audience a quick introduction about who you are, what you do?
I don't think we have enough time for all that, but
give me your best 30 to 45
I would
seconds.
say I never planned on being in this seat. Is probably where I would start this conversation. I never planned on being in the health and fitness industry. I never planned on being a mental health coach. And I never planned on, being on cool podcasts like this. This is the trajectory I had for myself was to be a rich, successful CEO. And I started on that path and found myself being pretty miserable. And that's how I got into this space of wellness, was actually through my own self-care and my own self-growth. So I never thought I'd be here. So I love to talk about that a little, on the journey that it is to build your own life and create your own life, and how challenging that can be, because I think there's a lot of stuff out there that says it's pretty easy, and it can be quite the ride. So yeah.
That's definitely interesting, because if you ask most of us as guys in our early 20s, if you say you want to build your own business, you want to make a lot of money, a lot of us would say, yeah, sign me up for that. And it's funny to hear you say that that's exactly the path I wanted, but then life, I'm gonna say, gets in the way, but life changes you. Mm-hmm. And now you're in a position now where you've created a brand that you want to help, it brings a lot of value to people, and you want to help to promote that in ways that if you look back in your life 20 years ago, you'd say, never would have seen that coming. And plus 20 years ago, this podcasting thing just wasn't a thing anyway. So give me a little bit about how you've evolved since, let's say, your college years, early, late 20s to where you were going, and what changed along the way to say, this is actually where I want to go.
Yeah. I mean, 20 years ago, I was drunk right now, I'm sure, in college and a fraternity. And, all I really wanted to do at that point in my life was be, a CEO in a corporate world. And I had a big vision of that. And that's really who my identity was wrapped around. And really, I was clear on what I wanted. And I found myself in a high track, high speed pace of being an executive. And within a couple of years of doing that work, I found myself being very unhappy and unable to manage my own stress and my own mental wellness. And even noticing I was starting to make good money, and people had thought I was successful, but I was getting more and more unhappy. So a friend of mine actually got me into yoga in my mid-20s, kind of as a way to help me deal with my own stress. He could tell that I was unhappy. He could tell that I wasn't thriving. And he goes, hey man, let's go to yoga together. Let's check it out. And at this point, 20 years ago, men were not in the yoga studio, by the way, for the most part. It was mainly just me and a couple other guys possibly. And I remember going to my first yoga class, and I couldn't touch my knees. I had played college basketball. I was an athlete my whole life, and I'm in this yoga class shaking, looking around, and I'm like, what am I doing in here? I hate this. I want nothing to do with this practice.
You were how old?
I'm in my early 20s, 23, 24, something like that. So about 16, 17 years ago now. And I'm in yoga, and I'm going, this is terrible. I hate this. And I remember going home and being like, I don't know why, but I need to go back. And for about 6 months, I kept going back, and I hated it. And I was miserable in yoga. I was also extremely a personality at that point in my life. Very driven, very fast, kind of take no prisoners mentality. I was tough. I was not a nice manager. I wouldn't even say I was a nice person at that point. And yoga really taught me how to slow down. And for me, what I had found in that space of yoga, and this took probably 5 to 10 years for me to realize what was happening, was it was giving me space to turn inward and start to ask myself questions, kind of where this conversation is going to go of, who am I? Why am I here in this world? And really what I want to do with myself. And it was yoga that started to give me that space and place to start to learn about that, start to ask those questions. And after a year or two of these questions, they started to get louder, right? I noticed that as you start to ask yourself questions, and you've done this too, Mike, as you start to ask yourself questions, they get louder. And then they can get to the point where it's like, now I can't think about anything else. And I was really getting to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm changing, I'm managing my stress, I'm becoming a better manager, I'm leading with more passion and more purpose. And I don't think I would have left my corporate career, by the way. I think I would have found some way to make that work. But I was coming home from a corporate event one night in Christmas time, and I was dressed in a suit. Me and my roommate at the time walking home 2, 3 in the morning from a bar, and this car drives by me. And no headlights on the car, right? And you're a cop, you know that's not a good the second you see that.
Usually not at night.
And the car drives by me, and I look at my buddy, I'm like, we need to run. And he's like, what are you talking about? We're fine. I'm like, something's up. Car drives by again, no headlights. I'm like, shit, here we go. 3 dudes jump out of a car. They mug us, take our money, take our wallets, end up getting in a fight, pretty much for our lives. I ended up fighting off 3 of the guys myself. You saw how big I am. I'm about 240 pounds. So luckily I was able to fight these guys off and we were okay. But I woke up the next morning, and this is really where my life takes a totally different trajectory. And I asked myself this question. I said, if I would have died last night, would my life have been worth it? And it was a resounding no. Like, it wasn't like maybe. It was like, no, your life would not have been worth it if you would have died. And it was that moment that I needed to wake me up. And I can look back now and go, that was divine intervention. That was because I don't think I would have left the path I was on. It was too comfortable. It was working. It was normal, And I needed something that strong to wake me up and shake me up to get me to really say, okay, do I want to live the life that I see? And in that moment, I didn't know what that was, but I said, okay, this isn't working. I got to go. So I quit my corporate job, sold everything I owned, and I moved, and I lived in Thailand and Mexico and Korea for about 3 years, traveling the world, teaching English, really spending a lot of time finding out who I was first, and answering those questions. Why am I here? Who am I? What do I want to do? And in my late 20s, I actually found myself being rather lost at that point, kind of lost direction, lost purpose, lost an understanding of how to function in the world. I had gone from being extremely money-driven to then being extremely anti-money, and very spiritual, to the point where I don't need anything. And what I found for me, and this is something I really like to share a lot in my teachings, is what worked for me isn't necessarily what will work for someone else. So I had to find out that going to the extreme with money and materialism wasn't going to work for me. And I also had to find out that going to the opposite of that, of having no money and no material, so that didn't work for me either. So then I said, okay, what I need to do is figure out how to bring these together. How do I live a successful material life and a life that's filled with spirituality and purpose and passion and prosperity? And that I will tell you right now was not easy. That's probably a 5 to 7 year process of me pounding my head against the wall of trying to figure out how to make this work. And then in my late 20s, early 30s, I started to kind of put some pieces together, and I said, okay, I think what I want to do is I want to teach people what I've learned on how to bring these two realities together and be a resource for people that live in the Bay Area that, that are successful, that have good jobs, that are married, and then teach them how to have less stress, how to have more happiness, and how to do that all in a way that works for them. And that's been uniquely kind of me, what I've designed in myself, and then now I've taught for the last, over a decade, maybe 12, 13 years now of that process. So that's a lot of what has brought me to be where I am and what I teach. And that is also a lot of what my fitness company Tribe represents, is how do we take people that live in the Bay Area and teach them skills to take care of themselves, where they feel supported and they feel like they're heard and they're seen, and they can really grow as humans. So that's been that process of really learning who I am and how to bring it in the world. And it's by no means been easy, but I can look back now and say, but damn, it's been worth it.
I believe it. Wow,
Yeah.
there's a lot to unpack there in that
Yeah.
whole statement there. Actually, first thing I wanted to ask is, what corporate job were you doing? Or
I was-
type of industry? Let's go with that.
I worked for the country's largest water bottling manufacturer. So if you've ever gone to Costco or Safeway or Walmart, they're the company that does all the water for them, private label. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, multi-billion-dollar company. So yeah, I'm selling water in my mid-20s, making a lot of money, and I'm like, I'm selling water. I am taking away from the environment. I'm not adding anything to
Wow.
society.
I mean, I get where you're coming from there. You get a job that's giving you this paycheck well with all the zeros, especially at that age
Yeah.
when, let's just call it what it is. At that age for dudes especially, we are trying to floss. We need to
Yeah.
show that we have the money, we have the cars, we have the whatever, because
Yep.
to us, that's our sense of validation. We like things, women like to engage a lot with people, conversations. We're like, we need things. I need a car, I need a house, I need all this stuff here. It totally makes sense there.
Yep.
Downside is when you floss too much, people are going to notice. You
Yep.
flash it, and then that car driving back and forth, like, okay, he's got a nice watch. I see those Ferragamos or whatever it was you're wearing, and then it picks you out like that. Unfortunately, you can't even wear anything nice around here. A lot of people that get their Rolexes stolen over here, it's like, well, when you wear that thing, people are watching, and then they're going to follow you, or they're going to wait where your car's at. And it sucks that we have to be in this environment, but it's something that we do have to deal with. So you have a job, and we won't get into how much you were making, but you're making good money at a corporate job selling water. By definition, you should have been happy. You should have said, I had everything. I can do whatever I want. But clearly you hit a wall where you said, what am I doing? Yeah, I have all this stuff, but what's it bringing me?
Yeah.
Is it bringing me a purpose? No. Do I know what my purpose is? No, whatever. And a lot of us get into that phase. For me, I got into probably in my early 30s where once I had a lot of the bills paid off and I could kind of evaluate what I'm doing, that purpose became something where I said, yeah, this is there's got to be more that I can do out here that is more than just beyond the place that pays me my paycheck for the job that I do there. I do a great job while I'm there, or the best that I can, but there's more that I can do outside of it that this job was never meant to fulfill, nor should it have done. And so one of the things that I wanted to get into with that is just from your perspective, before we get into Tribe, just as a guy, talk about, and I can relate a lot to this, about how that lack of purpose just really affects you.
Yeah, it's interesting because I deal a lot with pain, right? I deal a lot with people's physical pain or emotional pain or spiritual pain, and something I learned, from my own journey again is, and like you said, I had all the boxes checked. Like, okay, this guy should be happy. This is on the path. One of the hardest things, by the way, was killing that identity. And then I remember I was kind of the friend that everyone thought was the most successful, and all the parents liked me. And when I quit my job, I remember a lot of my friends' parents being like, I don't know what's up with this guy. Like, you can't trust him. Like, this isn't right. And I remember like breaking that identity was actually one of the hardest pieces. That created a lot of internal pain in my life for sure. But what I've noticed is that physical pain is pretty temporary for the most part, right? Outside of chronic pain. But when you start to get into emotional pain or spiritual pain, which usually starts to live in these questions of like, what's my purpose in the world? Once you start to touch that pain, it can be almost unbearable. And I think that's probably where a lot of depression and a lot of unhappiness and a lot of male suicide lives actually at the end of the day is like, why am I on this planet and what am I here to do? And that's not a question a lot of people ask themselves. And I've already mentioned it a couple of times. It's who am I? Why am I here? And what do I want? Those are some major questions. That's from yoga. It's called vichara. Those are major questions of understanding what your purpose is in this planet. And again, I noticed once I started asking that question of like, what's my purpose? It just got louder and louder and louder, and it gnawed at me for years, right? So I would say like a kind of a caveat here is like, you got to be willing to be tough spiritually and emotionally if you're going to start to ask yourself these questions, because to some extent, ignorance is bliss. Having the nice job and the nice watch and the nice wife, there's nothing wrong with that. It works for a lot of people, but if you're starting to say this isn't working, then the deeper questions can bring you more pain at first. And I say can, they don't have to, but they can. So, but you got to be tough, like spiritually tough and emotionally tough, and to have faith that you'll figure it out. To have faith that the fact that I'm asking myself the question means that the answer lies within that question. Because I wouldn't be asking myself, why am I here? What's my purpose? If I knew that what I was doing wasn't it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, so just know, like, if you're asking yourself the question, that's a good thing. That's you waking up to yourself going, okay, there's more here, but what is it? I'm not quite sure. That's when you find a coach. That's when you find a teacher. That's when you find a book that opens you up and you go, okay, well, at least I can take an action. I can take a step today that gets me one step closer. And I know for me, it was like there was a wall of fog in front of me, in front of my life for a long time. And I remember being like, I know there's something on the other side of that wall of fog, and I don't know what the fuck it is. And that was so painful because I'm like, I know something's there, but I can't see it. And what started to happen was, as I did more self work, that wall of fog started to lower, and I'm like lowering my hands as I look at Mike. And it's like, then I was able to start to see over it, right? And like maybe see a piece of it. It's like, oh, okay, maybe it's teaching yoga. Okay, well, all right, maybe it's teaching, people how to live in the city and how to find passion. I was like, okay, that's not quite it. But then everything got me closer and closer and closer to when I was finally like, okay, now I got it. And then, by the way, once you know what it is, then you got to figure out how to live it. And, and that's a whole different topic of understanding what your purpose and passion is and then bringing that into the world. And that's what you and I are doing in this place a lot. And we talked about, in a lot of ways, it's nice to not have your passion or your purpose directly correlated to your income. Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot of freedom that you and I have created by having our own businesses and own companies. And we can come here and it's like, it doesn't matter if we make a cent off this because we don't need it. And like, that's cool. That's freeing. So like, if you can even unpack those a little and they don't all have to be in the same thing, like that's a nice way to start too.
Exactly. And now we'll just get into this now because sort of the conversation led that way. This whole issue of men's health and the depression issue going around. And if to me, you can go back hundreds of thousands of years if you really want to evaluate what's going on. One thing that I think people need to understand in today's world in the United States, we're not talking about Africa, India, Asia, wherever, where it's just a different dynamic. Most of us, and especially in an area like this where it's so expensive to live in Silicon Valley, guys aren't going to get their act together, even if they put all the work into probably they're in their early to mid 30s. Mm-hmm. So there's this pressure that you're supposed to figure all this stuff out when you graduate college at 23 or whatever it is, and you're supposed to be all set. It doesn't work that way, and it's not going to change anytime soon, especially as more and more people get degrees. Your market gets saturated with all these college graduates, and now you go look for a job. It's, you got a degree, great. What else you got? 10,000 other people who apply for the job have a degree. But going back in the day, you talked to my father's generation, my grandfather's generation, you ask him about the depression. It wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. Was it around at some point? Probably was. Was there addiction, especially with alcohol? Yeah, I'm sure that was definitely something that was out and about. But for the most part, you didn't see the same amount of suffering and confusion that you see nowadays, especially on social media, because it's all out there. And you realize how much the country has changed in so many different ways for the better. But nothing comes for free. There's always going to be some sort of a give and take with it. And part of the reason why our country's been so financially successful and being the most powerful country in the entire world means that in order for us to grow, more people have to be out there making money, which is why you see a lot of women out there in the workforce. It's been great for them. But now all the jobs that my dad's generation, the grandfather's generation, where you work with your hands, all those jobs are gone. They're outsourced to China, Mexico, India more and more, especially they're going to be making iPhones in India coming up soon if they haven't already. So all those jobs working with the hands, that all left the country. And it's been a big challenge for a lot of people to adapt to it. You go to the Midwest or the Northeast, the Rust Belt where they were building cars, they were making steel, all the factories, empty, ghost towns in all these places. So you got a bunch of dudes growing up there that said, I want to do what my dad did. I want to build this and build that, but that doesn't exist anymore here. And now you live in poverty because you've never developed the skills necessary to say, what can I do around here? Or there's no money around. It can be a challenge to say you got to go where the work is, which means maybe you got to redevelop your skills and go into tech because that's where the money seems to be. Or as time goes on, try to find a different area where you can do good in, but you got to put the work in. You can't just rely on what's been in the family for 4 or 5 generations and keep that up. And when I see that on the streets with the homeless crisis, the fentanyl crisis, men's deleting themselves in the industry where I work. I see that unfortunately way too many times. A lot of it is just they get this pressure that I'm supposed to be here and I'm not there yet. So therefore, why is it worth it? And they just give up. But some of the best success stories I've seen from people who have been down the bottom is that in order for them to get out of that, they have to hit rock bottom. You'd have to be somebody that gets arrested multiple times and gets thrown in jail saying you're not leaving now because you've been arrested several times for possession of dope. So you're going to get clean now. You don't have a choice. And by them being at rock bottom and forcing to get the treatment that they needed, that gave them the path to get out of it and go on and do better things in the world. And with the last guy I talked to, Tom Wolfe, he's an advocate for drug recovery around here. Is like, yeah, they'll tell you all day, the drug addicts, that they want to get off the dope, but they won't actually do it because there's no reason for them to do it because they're so addicted to the cycle that if you tell them that I'm going to give you a house and all this stuff, but here's what you got to do, they're going to say, no, I'll do it on my terms. Why not? I'll just keep getting high today. One day I'll get clean, but then that means they never really will. And that lack of purpose within men's health has been something that's been dragging a lot of things down too. Because we were talking about how one of the things that you've been talking about in your podcast that you hear is a lot of women complaining, we're all the good men. And then we see a lot of things going on around here is that, yes, as more women get in the workforce, there's less jobs for a lot of the men to take. And either men, you got to step up and adjust and do something else that's going to make you beneficial, or you're going to fall to the side and give up. Big problem that I've seen around here. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, I got a lot of thoughts. I think a lot of what's happened with men in recent times, you're right, is that we're lacking purpose and direction, right? And I prefer to actually look at energy when I talk about men and women and take it actually to masculine and feminine, because then we can take it off of like kind of like the gender, making one gender right and one gender wrong, because I think that's a lose-lose conversation. So a lot of men, what they're actually lacking is masculine energy or masculine power, right? And masculine power it's got a lot of positive in it. And you hear a lot about toxic masculinity, but what we don't hear about is the positive aspect or the positive sides of masculinity, like the lightened side or the enlightened sides, which is clarity, like decision making, a strong father who's in the home, who provides food and safety, and a sense of that everything's going to be okay. Those are really loving aspects of the masculine personality. So a lot of men are actually lacking masculine energy. And what we've learned over the last 20 or 30 years is actually that men have a lot more feminine energy, which isn't a bad thing. We all have this. We have masculine and feminine energy. But what I see a lot is women are actually taking much more of the masculine energy, right? Like they're the ones in San Francisco that are educated, that have got their shit together, right? That are like making things happen. And a lot of the guys are checking out because they don't have masculine power to say, hey, here's what I need. Here's what I want. Here's what's important to me. And when you get that into a relationship, that's when things don't start to work too well, and it's like the woman in the house is taking control and calling all the shots. And you'll see this with a lot of guys. They start backing off and becoming like betas, or becoming much more subtle, or much more like they don't have their power anymore. And it's not, I want to be careful with my words. It's not like a battle for power here, right? It's like if women are showing up in the masculine and men are showing up in the feminine, it creates an imbalance, right? So what men can learn to do is to step more into their power and more into their own strength of, I know who I am. I know what's important to me. I have something to say, right? And I want to bring that into a way that's healthy and a way that is, that actually allows women to feel a lot safer in their presence. Like if I tell my wife, like, Emily, like, I've got this. Like, let me take the control on this and let me go at the front of this conversation. She then understands that she can actually relax, because my wife's actually very masculine too. So her and I kind of butt heads for who's in charge. But if I say to her, Em, I go, I got this. Let me talk to whoever we're in and let me take control. It allows her to then relax. And then she can be supportive of me, right? But then she doesn't feel like she needs to be the one to fix the problem. And you'll hear women say that all the time. It's like, I'm doing everything. I'm making the money. I'm cleaning the house. I'm taking care of the kids. I'm walking the dog. And my husband's he's just checked out. And guys check out with alcohol, with golf, with gambling, right? With pornography. And the men, a lot of men I see are checked out. And I think it comes back to a lot of what you said is they don't have a clear understanding of what their purpose in the world is. Why are they here and how are they going to go bring it into the world? You do. I do. And that's where you can see us sit together in a very strong masculine energy that's supportive and loving and like bringing positivity into the world. It's almost like I like to call it like the being a conscious alpha, right? It's like, hey, I'm an alpha, you're an alpha. The people you work with are an alpha. The women in the room can be alphas, but we do it consciously. We're all working together to move us all forward. There's some great stuff out there. There's a book called Iron John. If any guys are listening, I would start there when it comes to men's health. There's also another one called The Way of the Superior Man. And they're books, they're frameworks on how to step more into your masculine power and how to find your purpose and then go live it. But it's a big conversation. And I think a lot of it is men don't know why they're here and they feel confused. And the negative aspect of masculine is it leaves. So you're seeing that, right? You're seeing guys just check out like, well, I'm out of here. Or that you said the police officers deleting themselves. That's a reason why 70% of suicide is male. It's a very masculine action. Well, I'm out, to the extreme. And it's not something we talk about, and we're so hung up on making men wrong that the negative aspect of the masculine is go, oh, I'm wrong? Well, then I'm out.
Yeah.
And that's what it does. Instead of like, no, we need you to be here. We need you to step up. We need you to be present. I'm sure you see that most of the guys on the street, their fathers weren't around. You know, that's a common thread that you see in broken homes and children that aren't raised well. It's like the father's not there. Or like my father, he was there physically, but he wasn't there emotionally. You know, he was checked out for 5 years. It was like you poke him. Like nobody home.
It's
I had to learn how to be the father to my mother and my brother at age 13 as a result. And it's like in my 40s, I'm undoing that work now personally of not taking responsibility for everyone else, right? And not being everyone's parent. But that's a long time of growth because I had a father who couldn't be there. He didn't have the skills.
You know, I will say this is that there's a lot I can say about this. There's there's a lot of challenges. One of the challenges with this whole thing is dudes were literal. You tell me you need to climb that fence. Okay, got it. Okay, fix this, tighten that. Okay, good. Give me the task. Boom, done. That's what I have to do. And women are more emotional. They'll tell you something, but it's not so much what they're saying. You have to be able to interpret what that really means. So when you get a lot of this information to dudes saying do A, B, and C, guys who are being literal are going to do A, B, and C. And when they don't get the result that they think that they want, they're going to say, wait a minute, you told me to do A, B, and C. I did A, B, and C, and now you're punishing me. And we can't understand it. It takes a lot of understanding how people work. It takes years of experience. It takes a lot of falling on your face and getting back up before things start to click. What does that actually mean? Which is why I say a lot of dudes don't figure this out till we're in our 30s where, oh, it clicks. If you told me all that stuff when I was 18, over my head, I wouldn't know how to process it because my mind's still being developing then. And I don't have a life experience to really know what that means. The way I like to interpret it is there's a prerequisite before we get into all the, you should buy this, you should do this, you should do all that stuff right there, which is whole different topic. You got to understand what it takes to actually take care of your own self. You got to realize that as you get older as a guy, it's easy to fall off. I see this a lot. No offense to anybody who in my circle may be in this group, but guys get married, they have kids, and then we sort of hit this finish line where, well, I got the house, I got the kids, I'm good. I'll sit on the couch and put my feet up, and what happens? You don't go to the gym anymore. You start eating bad. As you get older and your testosterone goes down, if you don't fight against it, now you're putting on more weight. You have kids. Your body's generating prolactin because it thinks you need to stay up longer. So you're holding on to more weight, which gives you less motivation to get out of the house and go to the gym, less passion to go out and create things. But in your mind, or a lot of guys' minds, it's, I got the wife, I got the kids, I got the house. I'm all good. So why am I getting all this pushback from everybody else in my life saying that I should do more and do more? I just did all this and they can't figure out what that actually means. And you go back in time and you say, you have to be, in my book, you have to find your own passion independent of your relationships, of your job, of your friends, because everybody means well. But if you rely on trying to please everybody else, you're going to sacrifice your own self and you're not going to see it until it's too late. You got to maintain those boundaries. You got to keep going to the gym. If you have that schedule, I got to go 5 days a week to the gym. Hold to that schedule. Don't get caught up in the mindset of, well, I need to do this, or she wants me to do that more, so I'll listen to her. I'll do this, because you're not realizing, people are seeing it. You're sacrificing your own personal needs, because if you don't take care of yourself first, eventually people are going to not respect you. They're not going to listen to you. They're going to argue with you more. You're not going to see it. If you have a passion like this, for example, we were talking about, you have to maintain that. And people are going to see that. They're going to respect that. They may pout and shout in the meantime. You're not around enough, or you need more hours at the job here. It's like, I'm doing what I got to do, and I have to find that balance in my life. And if you don't understand it or agree with it, I'm fine with that. You go your way, I go my way. But I will not compromise who I am. I will not compromise my health, my own personal well-being, because it's the mindset like that keeps people like me out of depression. I don't get depressed because I'm too busy focusing on what I have to finish here, building the podcast, doing my job, balancing everything else in my life. There's no time for me to sit and sulk on Instagram saying, I wish I had that Lamborghini, or I wish I had his six pack, or I wish I was as tall as him. I was tall as Nick, 6'7", man. I'm not sitting here worrying about that. I'm focusing on me and making myself better. And the more you do that as a guy, you'll find that all these other things in your life sort of take care of themselves. People tend to like you more. You'll get more respect at your job. That can show in promotions. It can show in people looking to you to lead other people. It can do great things in your relationships with women, is that they're going to see that and realize, I can't break him. He has his ways. He's respectful of me. He doesn't punch me or hit it, do anything like stupid like that. But he has his boundaries, and I have to respect that. But it's something that you can't just. Unfortunately, we can't just tell guys, do this and it's going to work. You have to find your own path and understand that you can't compromise on things that make you who you are.
Yeah, I'd say there's so much good stuff in there, and a lot of that is discipline. And I think a lot of us, both men and women, if you're unsure about it, that's when the questions will come. That's when the questions are gonna be like, what are you doing, man? There's a story that I share a lot with my trainers at my gym. It's like when I was coming up in the health and fitness game, when I wasn't sure about my philosophies of combining health and yoga and fitness into one methodology, I would get people all the time saying, hey, Nick, like yoga's for women, man. Like a strong personal trainer shouldn't be practicing yoga. And then I would go to a yoga studio and then the yoga teachers would be like, what are you doing? Like yogis don't work out. They don't lift weights. That's going to get in the way of your enlightenment. And what I noticed was when I was unsure about myself, I would get a lot of that feedback from the people around me, right? And now that the methodology within me that I know works for me, I don't get those questions anymore. And I go, oh, what's the difference? The difference is 30-year-old Nick was unsure of himself. 40-year-old Nick knows who he is. And then people are just responding to what I'm presenting into the world. It doesn't make it right or wrong. They're just going, oh, that guy's clear. Well, then I trust him.
Mm-hmm. Funny how that works is we're both 40 and we're both in the same mindset here. When you talk to us when we're 20, you'd be like, that's the same person? Like, what happened in your life? Yeah, it takes time to get through this. You have to stick to your guns. And when you do that,
Yes.
you're going to weed out all the bad elements. All the people that subconsciously might try
Yes.
to bring you down, they will get out of your life. If people try to get you to change your mindset, it's like, no, I'm doing what I'm doing. I have my reason why I'm doing it. If you don't like it, we're not friends anymore, or we're not in a relationship, or we're not. If it's your parents, sometimes they get really like, well, I'm your father. Well, guess what, Dad? You had your life. I appreciate you taught me a lot. This is my life. If you don't like it, we just won't talk anymore. It's as simple as that. Because if I start giving in to everybody without realizing it, it will bring you down because now you're living for everybody else. And you wonder, why am I depressed? Gee, I wonder why. It was, the funny thing about keeping yourself healthy and how just the chemicals that we don't understand in our body affect your mental health. I met somebody in my industry not too long ago, and I thought he was like 55 years old because we were talking about, hey, after work we should go to the bar. I'm like, it's 2 a.m. I work at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I'm not going to the bar right now. Maybe at the end of the work week. Okay, we have time, whatever. And then I asked him like the following day, I was like, by the way, how old are you? And he was balding, beard gut. I'm 38. I'm like, holy shit, you're 38. You're like, dude, what the, you can't, like, it's not my place to tell you how to live your life. You do what you want to do. If you want to ask me because you want advice, that's a different story, but I'm not going to impose my thing on you. I'm just going to live my life the way it is. And if you want to ask me later because you see the results I'm getting, we can have a conversation about it. But in my mind, I'm like, oh man, see, this is, yeah, I could probably write down the whole script of what his life is actually like because it's so cliche. It's almost like a repetitive thing with everybody.
It's probably the things you listed 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Job, house, wife, kids, dog, football on Sunday, no purpose. It's like, I look at that all the time, by the way, being in the wellness space. Like if I meet someone who's like in their 70s and they look like they're 50 years old, like I'm on them like a hawk. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? And what I notice is usually two things. One, they exercise, and two, they've got a positive mindset. And on the flip side, when I meet someone who's 30 who looks 10 years older than us, I'm on them like a hawk. Like, what are you doing? They're not exercising, and they usually talk about how old they are, or they talk about how much pain they're in. It's like, okay, so then you're telling me this thing between my ears is what's defining how I look, how I feel, my chemistry, right? I mean, I'll share. Last year I was going through a lot of depression, and I couldn't understand why. I'm like, okay, business is going pretty good. Like I'm meditating every day, I'm exercising every day, and my diet's on point. I'm like, and I'm miserable, right? Like to the point when I'm like, I think I might get divorced. I might blow up my company. I'm starting to get suicidal thoughts, and I'm like, something is just wrong, and I don't know what it is. I went to the doctor, had my testosterone checked. My testosterone was at 300, which I don't know if you're familiar with what that is.
Is it free test or is it the other
That's
one?
free. My total testosterone was at 300, which is equivalent to probably like what a 60-year-old man should have for testosterone. And I'm late 30s, a lot of muscle. I'm exercising, meditating. My doctor's like, I don't know what is going on, but this is not right. So I've been on TRT, testosterone replacement, for about a year and a half. And within like 6 weeks, I felt different. I felt happy. I felt like more like my old self. I'm going, oh God. So then my hormones, right, which were totally out of whack, were in essence like determining a lot of my reality. And it's like, okay, cool. So like, what can I do to step into this and change this? It's like, okay, great. Here's a tool. Here's a resource, right? But if I wasn't doing all of those things already, it wouldn't have been as easy to define like what's off.
Yeah.
And for me, it was hormones, but for someone else, it could be purpose. It could be sleep. It could be relationship. It could be movement. There's so many things you can look at when you focus on it. So it's our job to make ourselves healthy. We got to make our health happen. And it's not necessarily easy. There's a lot of factors living in the Bay Area that pull us away from that, whatever they are. But if you're clear on it, if that's a priority, you'll make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing is, we both know that that's the way it's supposed to go. We both get it. We don't have to explain everything. We understand what that means. But sometimes you might have to tell a guy, hey, do you want 6-pack abs? And he might think, I just need the 6-pack, which is great if you accomplish it. But it's not so much the 6-pack itself. It's the steps you took to get there. It's the hard work you had to put in. That all of a sudden you're in the gym more. You're releasing all of these endorphins. Now you feel better about yourself. Now you want to go back. Now you're in the mindset after, for me, may take a couple of years where you're like, yeah, I don't want to go to the gym today, but guess what? I'm going. I just got off a 12-hour shift. Guess I got to do half an hour in the gym, even though I got to go to sleep in 3 hours because I need to keep that routine going for my own self. And maybe that helps me get better sleep. Yeah. You start realizing as you get older that it's not about the end result so much as it's that journey, which I think is probably a big thing in yoga, right?
It's the process. That's actually been the biggest shifts I made in the last couple of months, by the way, is trying to shift myself away from being goal focused and shift myself to being process focused. Because what I've found is being goal focused tends to lead to depression and anxiety in myself, because it's like, okay, I hit this goal. Had a massive goal with Tribe. It's like, I want to create Tribe into a 7-figure business. Did it. Now it's like, okay, now let's make it an 8-figure business. It's like, that doesn't end. Just moving the goalpost. But you can sit there in the process of like, what does it look like to make this happen? What do I need? Like, what are the mindsets I need to bring into my life to be a leader that can actually create this? Or like, how do we train our staff so that they can run this? Or how do we build a community, right? And it's like all of those things, the process, that's actually the gift. The gift's in the journey. It's not actually in the outcome, because then, it's like, okay, it's great. We celebrate. And the next day it's like, okay, now what? So shifting to process has been really, really helpful for me of getting bigger picture and releasing inner stress and pressure of being, a perfectionist and being a personality that's driven by results, and be like, that's okay. I can have goals, but my identity doesn't need to be wrapped up in achieving them. Because you know what, like a lot of times they shift by the time you get there too. So yeah, if you can shift to being process oriented, the byproduct is usually success. And if you look at a lot of successful people, they have commonalities, right? They have common traits. They place a priority on their wellness. They exercise, they do yoga, they meditate, right? They're positive. They see things in their mind and they go create them. They use language of like, I can do this. I have faith in myself. I have trust. It's almost like a blueprint that's out there. If you want to be successful, it's like, take care of yourself, be disciplined, put in the work, be patient, get yourself around people that are doing better than you. And whatever field we're talking about, all these same rules apply, whether it's fitness, whether it's finance, whether it's business, whether it's relationship. Like, it takes work to make things work.
Yeah. And one thing to add on to that people should know is that just because you do all that, it's not going to happen overnight. This will take probably years. If you're doing it right, you're going to not see any results. We talked about the idea of compound interest. You keep putting money in your 401k, for example, you could look at it in 5 years, like it doesn't look like it moved anywhere. Then you look at it in 10 years, okay, it bumped up a lot. And then 20 years, it just shoots up because all that time and investment allowed the funds to grow to now when you retire, like, oh, there's how many millions of dollars in there? I couldn't see it when I was 20, and then now you're seeing it build up as time goes on. Like, and then going back to that, you have to understand is that if you're going to follow your purpose with that, you're probably going to piss some people off. There's going to be people who won't like you, and you got to be able to take that. Okay, if you don't like me, fine. You go your way, I go my way. I'm not here to impress you. I'm not here to impress anybody else. I have my life to live, and guess what? That's going to make me happy. So if you're somebody out there that is struggling with their weight or their confidence, or their purpose, you get around people who are doing that and just absorb it, listen to them, wipe that slate clean. Everything you thought you knew about life, about how I'm supposed to do things that have gotten you zero results, forget all that and watch the people who are actually doing something good. I think that's probably one of the biggest motivators for people who go into the gym because they want to be a client. It's all right, let me absorb everything. I see what they're doing. I see the work that they're putting in. I want to be a part of that. I understand it will not happen overnight. Like we'd all like to have 6-pack abs in 2 weeks or 60 days, like those commercials used to say. It will take a long, long time. And if you accept that and you're around that element, you look at yourself a couple years down the road like, wow, look what I've changed in myself. And I feel so much better about myself. And now I can go out and do things in the world that I never thought. And also the whole pressure, this is I think it's changing now for our generation and going forward for Generation Z. The idea that you're supposed to get married and have kids in your early 20s, the way that our parents did it, which was, and our grandparents, which is after World War II. We lost a lot of people in war. Everybody came back. They wanted to have families. We needed to build the population. Everything was centered around that. Malls, the suburbs, all built around the nuclear family. But as time has gone on, and as we see more and more women in the workforce, the same way that we grew up with our parents and our grandparents, we can't live the same way that they did. So if they keep giving you advice about you should do A, B, and C, well, that's what they did in their environment that worked for them. This is a whole different environment now. You and I both know how expensive it is to live in San Francisco or Silicon Valley as a whole. 1.5 million is going to get you a 1970s single family home that if you put that anywhere else in the country is worth $150,000. But here, that's what you get for it. It's like timeout. The quality of the schools. Do I want to live the same life that my parents did? Maybe, maybe not. Am I okay if both of us are working 40 hours a week, which means who's watching the kids, who's raising them, a nanny, somebody I don't know, and I have to pay money for that? Take a step back. You're like, what's the best path for me? Maybe it's not here in this area where you're making 200K a year plus at a lot of these tech jobs. Good money, but when you factor in how much it costs to live here, you're like, maybe this isn't for me, or maybe I need to find a different path. And maybe that means you won't have kids. Maybe that means you won't get married. Maybe that means you get to travel the world, but you live longer. And that's another thing, is this whole idea that you have to have kids because they need to take care of you when you retire. Like, that's old school mentality when there was a retirement system. And how many, I've seen a lot of this in my life. You see a lot of older people that when they're 70, 80 years old, they just sit in front of the TV all day, waiting to play with the grandkids. And then when the grandkids are gone, they're back to sitting in front of the TV all day. Do you want to be somebody that's dependent on everybody else to live, or do you want to take control of your own life and get your fitness right so you can be like the 85, 90-year-old guy that goes to the gym and he's still pumping out bench presses, he's still lifting, he's still running. Saw a thing on Instagram. It was a 103-year-old war veteran talking about how to live life. And if you didn't know how old he was, you listened to him talk and the way he carried himself. I'm like, he looks like he's 75.
Yeah.
He's articulate. He's not sitting there like trying to gasp for air to speak about something. No, he's like fully articulate, fully there. Like, how did he survive that long? I think his strategy was pasta, wine, and no stress. Something like that. No stress one. If you figure out how to do that for yourself, you'd be amazed how much that's going to save your life in the future because of all those chemicals that are just running around your body that you can't see and we don't know about. My 2 cents anyway.
Yeah, and as you're using the word supposed to, right? And this is a core belief in the philosophies that I've put together. The teaching is find the breath that's right for you. And the breath is just a metaphor. It's a way to start to teach people how to meditate. So the breath is the life, the partner, the job, the coach, whatever it is. The word supposed to is going to fuck you up. Same with should. It's like, I don't know what you should do. Like, I only know what I should do maybe half the time. But when I start looking at pictures of this is what I'm supposed to do, this is how I should live, this is what I should be doing, it's like, one, those are mind-made. They don't exist in the present moment, right? They don't exist in reality. They may have existed in a reality of 20, 30 years ago. It's like, if you can remove the supposed to from your life, it's like, no, what do you want to do? Like, who do you want to be? What works for you, right? And then go out and then do that and live that. You will find you will be happier than most people. And also, my money's on, you'll be more successful. Now, you also need to define what success means for you, right? Because it may not mean money. For me, it's like, can I look in the mirror and can I like the person I see? And like, does my life give health, wealth, peace, and happiness to the people around me? If I can do those things, then like, it's a check. I've done it. But that's right now at 40. If we have this conversation at 45 or 50, like, I'm sure that's going to sound different. It's going to be different. So it's like, if you can remove the pictures of what your life is supposed to look like and instead feel into what it is you want to create and how you want it to be, go do that. And then take one action. Take one action today that's going to bring you closer to that. You're not going to create it today. And like we said, like, by the time you get there, that goal is going to shift. The picture is going to shift. But the more you can stay present in what you want to create in the world, the more you can stay the closer you can stay to happiness. The closer you can stay to having less stress, the closer you can stay to creating the life you want to live, and then also inspiring others around you to then go and do that. And then you start to create ripples, by the way. It's like by us having this conversation, we can get to a couple people that take one nugget and they go take that into their community, and it's going to ripple out then into their friends and their family and the people around them. That's how we grow. That's how we change the world. That's how we make this place a better place. And it's all, again, it comes back to within, taking care of our own selves, being sovereign beings, and then empowering others to go and do that. It's like, you can do that. Like, there's a lot of happiness there. And there can be a lot of financial success there too, which is something that I think really needs to be highlighted. Like you can live your purpose and have a prosperous life. Are you familiar with the Ikigai?
No.
The Ikigai, I think, is a game changer because we've talked a lot about passion and purpose. So I'd like to give actually a framework for it. So the Ikigai, it's a Japanese philosophy on really how to find happiness in life. I'd call it the sweet spot is kind of how I would call it. It's 4 things. It is, what are you good at, right? What do you like to do? What benefits the world? And then what can you make money at? So it's those 4 things. It's like 4 Venn diagrams that intersect, right? Or intercede. What do you like to do? What are you good at? What serves the world around you? And what can you make a living doing? If you can find all 4 of those together, you've hit it. I think even if you can find 2 or 3, like how many people do you know, they make a ton of money, they're good at it, but they don't like it, right? Or in my case before, I would kind of had all those 3, but I realized like selling water is doing nothing for this planet. So like if you can start to pack these together and focus on the first one, what do I like to do? I usually find that's where passion lives, right? Okay, what am I good at? Now, those 2 things together might start to look very differently. Like the podcast is a perfect example. What do you like to do? You like to connect with people. You like to talk about things that matter, right? You like to bring community together. So all of those are starting to serve. You're good at it. Now, the final piece will then be, how do you create that into a career, right? How do you create something that makes money off that? Like what you and I said, like that will come. So if you can start to build those together, that's where I really believe true happiness lives, within that sweet spot of the Ikigai. What are you good at? What do you like to do? What brings purpose and service to the world? And what provides you with an ability to live and have a material life and take care of your family? Those together, it'll set you free. It really will.
And then taking that pressure off, I'm supposed to be at this point by a certain point in my life. Because when you take when you take that time from out of it, and you got to understand, for the men especially, it's going to be, there's a reason why throughout history, you've always seen, older men with younger women. Now, I'm not talking about like young, like teenager. I'm talking about like you got a 50-year-old dude and like a 35-year-old woman. There's a reason. It took him a lot longer to get there. He needed to spend that much time. If you look at that guy when he was 35, probably wouldn't be the same conversation. It takes a long time to build that. The one thing that I would but clarify for me is the word happiness. Because to me, happiness means it comes and goes. I'm happy that the Niners won. Great, they won today. Well, actually, I don't care about the Niners. I'm happy that the Raiders won. Great, they won.
You look like a Raider fan.
I love the Raiders.
It's black and white you got on today.
Exactly. I don't care the fact that they suck. It is what it is. In fact, I'm going there in 2 weeks to see another game. I'm excited about that. But anyway, happiness for me is they won. Okay, now what? It's like the whole dopamine hit. It comes, I'm happy right now, and then it goes away. Yeah, and for me, it's
fleeting.
Exactly. So for me, it's the whole, I think serotonin is the right chemical. The longer term, what's the greater purpose? What gives you that drive to continue to go forward? Because you're going to have your ups and your downs. But to me, if you keep chasing that dopamine hit, hence the happiness part, it's going to be okay. I'm happy today. What am I doing now? Happy tonight. It could just be a semantic issue. I don't know what it is, but I want to be careful about telling guys always chasing happiness and chase the bigger purpose, because it's going to keep you going in the marathon versus the sprint race.
I think I'm really glad you brought that in, because I don't think we have to be happy. Actually, I know we don't have to be happy. And the thought out there that we should be happy creates a lot of unhappiness, right? So it's important. Now, happiness is important. It's like, I'd put it with fun, with enjoyment, right? And it's something that if we have more happiness in our life tends to go better. It also tends to be a byproduct of like, am I doing all these things around me? Am I kind of watering my garden so things are growing? But if we make happiness the goal, then we can really be setting ourselves up for failure, right? Because it's like, well, now I'm not happy. I should be. Why am I not? If we want to place a better word in there, then we should place joy in there as the word. Because joy doesn't have an opposite emotion. Happiness, sad, right? Anger, love, hate. Joy in itself is intrinsic. So I can feel joy even in a place of sadness. I can go to a funeral. Happiness would not be the appropriate emotion. That would be pretty weird, right? But now joy, I can be joyful at a funeral and still feel sadness, because I can be joyful of knowing that person, of the experiences we had, right? You could lose your business and you could still feel joyful, because it's like you had all those years with it and all the lessons you learned and all the people you impacted. And you could be sad, you could be angry, you could be upset, but joy will still live there. So if you can touch joy, that's where the long-term drive starts to come from. Now, how do we get joy? What I've noticed is you got to do things that you enjoy. And look at the word. Enjoy means to have joy within. Well, how do I find that? What are you passionate about? What do you like to do? This all works back to the Ikigai. When do you find joy? You and I are feeling it right now, right? Because we're talking about things that matter to us. We're present with each other. We're growing each other. It's like, well, my body just tingled. I just felt my energy spike up when I talked about that. So it's like, how do you find joy? Do the things you enjoy. Do you like moving your body? Do more of that. Do you like serving? Right? Do you like helping people? Do you like cooking? Do you like whatever it is? Do more of that. You will find there's more joy in there. And then that can actually start to give you your first insights into what's your passion. And then that can start to give the insights into what's your purpose. To me, it's like fascia, it's like connective tissue. So I like to challenge happiness because you're right. It shouldn't be our end all be all, nor should joy. But if you can find joy, that is another aspect that will give you much more depth and the ability to continue when things get tough.
Yeah. But it's got to be something that you're really into, and you have to know the bigger picture. Like when I started this, I was telling you, I knew this was a 10-year plan at the very least. Yeah. I knew that when I set everything up, by the way, I didn't know anything about all this stuff here. I had to learn on the fly what this meant, what this whole background, everything here is all learning progress. So when you see the episodes from episode 1, I've had great guests, but when you see the progression of episode 1 to the quality of it until now, it keeps getting better. And that's what I want to see, is that it's heading in the right direction. There is no threshold for me that says at this point I should have had 1,000 followers and I should be making 1,000. There is none of that for me. If I left it to that where I needed to hit that goal, I would have stopped a long time ago, because that means I was motivated by the wrong things. And with that, you have to understand, well, not you, but people have to understand, you have to do what's best for you, not what's everybody else. So there's always, and I gotta be careful saying this, but some people are so concerned about making others happy that they will latch on to the big thing that's going on in the news today, whether it's Donald Trump or it's Israel, Palestine, or whatever it is. They want to latch on to that, and they want people to approve of them. So they start saying, I love this, I hate that, I'm with everybody. They really don't care, or they really don't know. They just want to please everybody and have everybody tell them, I like you, you're doing great things, but really you're doing it for the wrong reasons. People have much more respect for you if you do what you do, and even if they don't agree with it, you can explain why you do it. We don't have to agree. Honestly, right now, I didn't tell you this, but if we had a debate where we were really heated about one thing, we could have a conversation about it. And at the end of the day, we shake hands, we respect each other, and we move on. Absolutely. There is no, he doesn't like what I say, so I have to bring him down. I don't care. If you don't agree with what I say, this is my opinion of it. But I want to hear from your side if we have differing opinions. That's the way it should have been. Too much now in social media, it's, if you don't agree with what I say, you're evil, you must be destroyed, I got to bring it down. Like, when did we get to that point? Because I don't say something that you like, well, I'm just going to remove myself from it because I'm going to do what I'm doing. You want to follow me? Great. If you don't, there's the door.
I don't think we're supposed to agree. Like, I think that's that's not a recipe for to win. That's not going to find a win-win. That's the lose-lose. It's like, if you don't agree with me, you're wrong. Go back to that's the toxic masculinity. Doesn't matter if it's male or female. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, you're wrong and I'm out. That's what we talked about. Instead, can we understand each other? Yeah, for sure. How could you and I have the same opinions? We're different people. We come from different cultures. Like, we're not supposed to have the same thoughts. We're not supposed to agree on everything. That's actually what makes life amazing, is that we can come together and talk, and I might be able to walk away and go, you know what? I do agree, because now I understand where you're coming from. And I didn't know that before. So we don't have to agree, but can we understand each other through communication? Absolutely. I think that's more where I'd like to see communication go. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. That's a lose-lose game. Because from everyone's perspective, they're both right. You ever been in a conversation where you're arguing with someone, maybe your wife, and at the end you're like, yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying and I don't want to. It's like, how could both people be right? It's like, that's not possible, but it is, because we're coming from different realities, different angles. And it's like, we can understand each other. Oh, there's things I do that drive my wife nuts, right? Like, I have a line that I say is like, any client that comes to work with me, my goal is for them to not need me. Okay. And she's like, would you stop saying that? Like, that's the worst business model I've ever heard in my life, right? So she doesn't agree with me on that. She would prefer I didn't say that, right? But she understands why I say it, because it's intrinsic to the belief system I have of, I'm not here to be someone's coach forever. I'm here to help get them to where they want to be. And once they've done that, like, my work is done. And there's more people in the world to serve. So a perfect example, she doesn't agree with it, but she understands it. So it's like, okay, well, she knows that's just who I am, right? And then she has things on the other side that like I don't agree with it, but I understand it. That's who she is. And do I love my wife? Yeah. Do I want to be with her? Yeah. Then that's okay if she thinks differently, or she's from England. Like, we're not going to have the same opinions.
Look at
Just
that.
not. We're just not. We shouldn't. That wouldn't be fun either. Where's the joy? Where's the fun in that if we all just have the same opinions? Like,
Oh, you're right.
in San Francisco, man, we're so liberal. I don't want to get off too topic, but like, we're so liberal that like, if we don't agree with each other, then you're wrong. It's like, that's just being conservative.
Good Jesus.
That's just conservative. Like, it's just like, we're not supposed to agree. We can understand, and that's how we grow, and that's how we get to better places.
Yeah, we're in the hornet's nest in San Francisco because I know there's people out there going to listen to this who live in San Francisco, and you're very on one side of it. And if anybody talks about the other side, they're evil and they must be shut down. Like, come on, we're all human beings here. I have an opinion, you have an opinion. We can sit and talk about it and find out what the best course of action is. Someone's going to steal this from me one day, but one of the titles for the show I was thinking about was Two Sides of a Coin. The idea is if I have a quarter here in front of me, no matter what, I'm going to be looking at this side of the coin. Let's say it's heads. We could be talking. I'm going to tell you all day how there's a head on this quarter. It looks like George Washington, whatever it is. And you're on the other side and you're looking at the same quarter, but you see an eagle. No matter what I tell you, you're going to see that eagle. And if we hold to that to our like, nope, this is right. Nope, this is right too. And I'll pull back and say, well, what if I flip this thing around? Oh, that's what he's talking about. I never saw that. I never thought there was another side. Yes, this is the side I see, and this is what I agree with. But I have to understand that there's another way to look at that same coin, the same exact quarter or coin. Now, okay, I mean, not agree with him, but at least I know what he's seeing. So now we can work together, knowing that he's just seen a different angle of it than I'm not. It's this whole idea. It goes back to an idea that I wish people would understand more. Is that human beings, Homo sapiens, we've been around this planet for at least 300,000 years. So 299,900 what odd years of that, it was all the same mindset. Everything has changed in the last, pretty much since World War II. As technology has gotten better, medical science has gotten better, we're living longer. The birth control pill, women's rights, civil rights, everything has changed in the last 100 years. That this never used to be something that ever happened before. You got to understand the human mind, that doesn't change that fast. We're still wired to survive in ways that our ancestors had to survive so that we're even here in the first place. When all of our other hominid species, Neanderthals, Homo erectus, Homo floresiensis, they all died off because they weren't able to adapt, whereas our species was. And we have to understand at a fundamental level that unless Elon Musk gives us the neurochip and it changes the whole wiring of all of our brains, women and men are fundamentally different on certain aspects. We're the same human being, 99% of the Y's DNA, but how we think is innately different because that's what we needed to do to survive long term. We had to think different. Like, if the men out there, you're not going to change the way a woman thinks. It's the way it is. It's the way she's agreeing. That's how they survive. And so too, if you're a woman out there, you will not change the way a man is wired to think. It's not the way it works. But we have to understand that we're both seeing two sides of the same coin. You see it your way, I see it my way. If I can talk to you and we can understand, we can work together. But if you're hell-bent on this is the way it is and it can't be another way, I can't envision another way, we're going to have a problem going forward. That's a lot of that miscommunication that's coming around now. There's a lot of talk about there from maybe on the feminine side of how a dude is supposed to be. And it's like, you can't say that because you don't know what it's like up here for dudes, how we think, what goes through our mind. And so too, I can't tell a woman how to be a woman. That's not my place. I don't understand what it's like. I don't have the same hormones. I don't give birth. I don't do all of those things. So who am I to tell you how you think? I just understand that's how you think. Let's work with it. Here's my side of it.
I mean, there's biology at play too, right? There's things that we don't even understand in terms of our hormones, biology, survival, and they're all there for a reason. And I think it's naive to say, oh, these don't exist, or we shouldn't look at these. It's like, we can understand these, and as we evolve, we can start to look at them and go, okay, like knowing the biology of a man versus woman, like, how do we work with that, right? And it's like, it's just funny. Like, I don't know if you go hang out with your buddies, and you come home and your wife goes, "What'd you guys talk about? How's Nick? How's his wife?
Good,
right? Good,
fine, yep."
Wait, didn't you ask? Didn't you dive into their relationship, or what they're doing, or if they're gonna have kids? And you go, no. They go, well, how's Billy? How's his job? Like, I don't know. And it's like, from the feminine perspective, they can't understand why we're not diving in there and talking about a deeper matter, right? Because guys tend to talk about subjects. Okay, we talk about sports, we talk about business, we talk about money, we talk about relationship. Women tend to talk about objects, right? So within it, they dive into the relationship and then they talk about all the aspects of it. That's just a different way of connecting. It's a different way of communicating. Neither's right or wrong. They're just different. Someone told me one time, I think it's pretty funny, that men are waffles and women are spaghetti. It's like the man's brain is, what are we talking about? We're talking about sports. Okay, I'm in the sport bucket. Cool, I got it. I feel safe. I'm okay here. And the women's brain, it's like, oh, what we're talking about? Well, we're talking about sports, but then we were talking about like the uniform, and then we were talking about like Taylor Swift, and like from the male brain, you're like, how the hell did we get there? Right? I thought we were talking about football. And then they're like, yeah, we are, but now we're talking about Taylor Swift. And it's like, you just understanding that people communicate differently. And the more you can understand that, the more you can understand each other, the more you can understand where you're coming from, it makes it a lot easier. And again, we don't have to think the same way. We don't have to agree. But you just know, like, me and you had a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
And we had a blast. And then our wives are like, I don't understand you guys. You guys just sound like a bunch of monkeys. We're like, yeah, we had some beer, played some golf, and we had a great time. And they're like, and that was good? And you're like, oh, it was great.
Yeah,
it was great. Can't wait to do it again.
That's why we enjoy watching sports so much. You watch an NFL game, you see the play, and then you want to see the replay. Like, okay, let's break it down. Oh, see, he should have thrown it to that guy because he was wide up. That guy fell. Why didn't the quarterback see it? And I can't stand when I hear people talk about horoscopes. It was in the stars that we met, and this is why it happened. Like, no, it's not. If you read the horoscopes objectively, they are the same thing. I could be a Leo today, and I could be a Pisces tomorrow. It's the same thing to me. Well, you don't understand because, no, I don't understand. You believe that? Fine. It's in the stars. That's why this whole thing happened. Great. Okay. I'll leave it up to the horoscope. But me, I need to get stuff done. This is what I need to do. This is what I need to work because that's what happens behind the scenes. Got to make it work that way. If it's fate, it's fate. I don't know. I'm not putting my fate in Sagittarius or whatever that's happening.
You know, I'll share something. When I was in my probably maybe early 30s, something like that. And I remember sitting around with my dad and my brother and myself. And, you know, we come from a broken marriage, you know, and didn't have the best example of what a healthy relationship looked like. And I remember we'd sit around and we'd bash women and we'd talk about how crazy they were. And we'd talk about like what we don't get. And I think one day I was like, guys, time out. I was like, if we sit here and we say that women are crazy, if we sit here and say that we don't get them, I was like, then all we're going to do is create that into our lives. Right. And it was this cool moment of like, if that's my thought, then that's the reality I'm going to create. So I was like, what if we just sit here and we say to each other, like, okay, based off our upbringings, based off relationships, we don't quite understand how to interact. We don't quite get them. And that's okay. And it was like a very freeing moment for all three of us. And sometimes I look back when I'm younger, I'm like, how did I come up with that one? Right. Like, but it was like such a great moment of our expectations were always going to be met because we had decided that we didn't understand how to interact with women. Right. Once we reframed that, once we readjusted that, now all three of us are in very healthy, loving relationships. You know, I go, wow, that was probably a moment which shifted our trajectory for all of our lives and relationships. It's like now we all have great wives, the three of us, you know. And I've had friends and family come around, me and my brother and my dad, and be like, wow, it's really cool the relationship you have with your wives. Like, you're your own people. You're individuals, and you come together and you're in a good relationship. And it's like, man, if we can model that, I'm not saying my marriage is perfect by any means. Don't mishear me on that. But it's like, if you can model that of like, we're individuals, we work on ourselves, you know, and then we come together and then we create a better version of ourselves, and we have differences and we have things that we don't like about each other and we have things we don't understand about each other, but we accept each other and we love each other. It's like, that to me is an example of a healthy relationship, and there's a lot of growth in there. But it took that shift of like making the other gender wrong and being like, no, like, let's reframe that. And it goes back to what you were saying of like, if we're trying to make people right and make people wrong, like, we've already lost.
With that, there's definitely a way to do that, because if you go to locker rooms, police locker rooms, football locker rooms, there've been a couple of times, but for the most part, I don't hear dudes like literally bashing women. Like literally, they are the worst thing in the world.
I agree.
But part of what makes therapy work for guys is we need to sort of joke around because it opens us up to each other. Oh, you had that too. I had this whole thing too. And then we have a good old blast with it. We leave the locker room. It stays in there. And that's kind of how it is. What people can agree with that or not. It's sort of the locker room talk that guys have. It's how we bond with each other. This gets me into a topic that I'm really curious to share your thoughts of, because I don't agree with how a lot of people do this, because I think it's different for men and women. But what are your thoughts on therapy for men, and is it different than therapy for women?
Yeah. I mean, I can talk through the lens of coaching, because I predominantly actually coached women for the first probably 10 years of my, wellness career. And that was when I wasn't as secure in my own masculinity, by the way. And as I stepped into more of my own secureness and my masculinity, that's when I actually mainly started coaching men now. One thing I like is that I think it's necessary for all of us. I think it's really important. Therapy, maybe not, but like having someone you can go and talk to, a mentor, a different objective viewpoint that can give you some insights. I think that's imperative. We've lost that mentorship in our society, right? Like the last time most guys have mentors is like their high school coaches for the most part. So that's a really important piece. But I think therapy for men and women is imperative and for all people. But one thing I've seen in working with both men and women for a long time now is that women, and I'm generalizing, tend to respond better to support, right? And men tend to respond better to challenge. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you are with your friend and he keeps complaining about his wife. Every time you see him, comes up, how's the marriage? Oh, it sucks. What do you can do about it? I don't know, nothing. What you can do with a man at some point is say, look, Mike, I love you. I support you. We've talked about your marriage 10 times. That was okay. But moving forward, I either need you to take action on it or you and I don't talk about it again. And when you can do that with men in a lot of ways, in a therapeutic and a safe place, they go, oh shit, I have talked about this 10 times. I am a broken record. I'm going to take action or I'm no longer going to bring it up. And that's where men will really respond to challenge and really respond to being pushed, right? Now, if I have a female friend, I probably wouldn't use that same technique, right? It might be like, hey, Melissa, like, that's great. How can I help you? You know, like, what are the things here we can do to make some changes? What are some different ways that you can bring some different communication into the relationship? What do you want to change, right? So notice even my voice changed, my energy changed when I'm talking to those two imaginary people. But it's like when men, they tend to respond better to challenge. Women tend to respond better to support. And then there's variance in there. So it's important to have mentors. I've found personally too, at some point I've needed female coaches or teachers when I was working more of my mom stuff. And then it's also been important to me to have male teachers when I've been working more of my dad's stuff. But usually at the end of the day, Psychology 101, you're working out your stuff through your therapist or through your coach. So yeah, it's been great to work with both. I mean, I would say the most fun I've ever had is leading men's groups and like really sitting with men and challenging them to grow. I had a group called the Mindful Men. And it was like we'd sit together for a couple hours in a circle and challenge each other and call each other out and support each other and love each other. And it's like I would love to see more of that in the world. And I do think it's growing. I think a lot of women are getting support. I think that there's a lot more men that need it. You know, we go back to 70% of suicide is male. There's a reason. Like, we're not trained to talk about stuff. We're not trained that it's okay to share. But there are men out there that are doing that. There are coaches out there that are doing that. And it's like, it's some of the most gratifying work I've ever done, and it's grown me more than any of the work I've ever done as well. So I'd say it's important for everybody, but I think for men listening, like, it's a good thing to get some help. It's a good thing to talk to someone who can give you an opinion and help you grow.
Yeah, I'm all about you need to get the help if you need it. But to me, there is a difference between therapy in terms of more the feminine side versus the masculine side. For me, I do not do well if I'm sitting in front of a couch with somebody who doesn't know me and I'm supposed to tell them all my problems and they're supposed to tell me, like, I don't know you. I don't know what you're about. Why am I going to trust you? It doesn't click for me. But I understand there are people there that do better in groups where we need to all talk about it. We need to get our emotions and our feelings and all that stuff out, and it works for them. Great. That does not work for me. I need to be challenged, like you said.
Yeah.
I need to go out with the guys and we need to go on a journey. We need to go on a bike ride, or we need to go motorcycle ride. We need to accomplish a goal together. There was I forgot who it was, but there's this chemical called vasopressin. It's one of the stress chemicals in the body. It's predominantly more in men than it is in women. And it's the stress chemical that allows us to bond through challenge. Back in the day, you know, caveman days, 5-6 dudes got together, whatever, wasn't able to go hunt the bison. They had to work together. I may not like you, but if we're working together to accomplish that task, now I trust you. Military, it's huge there because you're literally on the battlefield. You have to trust your people. You could disagree with them. I was talking to one guy. He was an African-American guy who was in the military. He said his best friend in the military was a white dude who was a neo-Nazi. And like on paper, they should have nothing in common with each other. They have different political views. But when they go to fight, they support each other. And you're like, how does that work? Tell me how that works. You're like, no, when you're in the fight, you trust your brothers. We are working to save each other's lives. We don't care what we think about outside, even if we completely disagree. And, you know, we have our own opinions about that. On the battlefield, we survive. We're for each other. Military veterans who come back, who suffer from PTSD, a lot of that is because they miss that bonding. They go back in the military because it was that bonding through stress. We were getting shot at the same time, but I was there for my brothers. It was less about I'm doing this for President so-and-so and more about I'm doing this to save my brothers. We're accomplishing a task together. And you bring him back into the civilian world and he said, here's a regular job. I don't know how to cope with this. I need dudes around me so we can go take care of it together. So for me, it is more of, if I need therapy, that means I need to go challenge myself somewhere else. I need to go work with the guys somewhere in the law enforcement industry so we can go accomplish a task together. I need to get in the gym more. I need someone to push me over there because that helps me get out of any sort of like that depression mindset. It's that challenge that keeps me going. In terms of talking out the feelings and whatnot, I'm not knocking for anybody. I'm sure it does work, but for me, I need to see more of that. And then through that challenge, things can come out. You're on the battlefield together and you're getting shot at, but there's some low in it. Then you start opening up like, hey man, got this thing going on in my marriage. Or hey man, how do you get your biceps to 19 inches? Oh, let me tell you something. Here's my secret. That's sort of where we open up, but not in front of a couch with some stranger with a clipboard saying, now tell me about your life. I'm going to fix your problems. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Again, that's the discrepancy that I see. Therapy's great, but it's a different definition for what works for men and what works for women. You kind of see the same thing?
I think it just depends. It depends on the person, and I think it really does. And that's kind of going back to the breath that's right for you. Like what's the style of therapy or coach that's right for you? And it really is, because there might be some women listening that are like, I hate that shit too. Like I just want to go out and play some sports and play, and have camaraderie. And I see that at my gym a lot. Like people grow through kind of suffering together, right? They grow through like they commiserating together of like, man, this sucks, but we're in it together. So I see it like that too. It's like, I think whatever works for you is the route you got to take. And I know for me, one of the best therapeutic experiences I ever had was on a 5-day long jungle trek in Colombia. And it kind of sounds crazy to say that out loud, but it was with my cousin, and it was a 5-day jungle trek. And I went into that trek, this is my late 20s as a boy, and I came out a man because I had 5 days of being in partnership with other people, men and women, being scared, sleeping in the jungle, hearing snakes like drop onto like our roof, seeing a guy get bit by a scorpion and having to get like helevac'd out, like to the point when it's like, man, like just sitting with my thoughts within challenge and within like a survival place for 5 days. I came out and I said, like, I processed so much of my stuff because for 5 days, just walking through the jungle, thinking through myself of like all these things that weren't working. It was a huge inflection point. So it's like, you never know what it's going to be,
No, you're right. And that's those are the most memorable things for me. It's the old idea of the rite of passage.
Yeah.
You need to cross that threshold with other dudes before you're a man. At least that's how it was back in the day.
And we've lost that too. We've lost the mentor. We've lost the rite of passage, excuse me. And we've lost like the initiation.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're a man. You're officially now you're an elder. Now you're responsible for the younger generation. We've lost that. And I would love to see more of that come back into our society of like an initiation process. And the military has it, right?
Without going into specifics, does that remind you of your pledging process in the fraternity?
Totally.
The same thing with me.
Totally.
Like,
and those are some of my best friends still, right? And it's like, there's a reason, because you go through a struggle together and you come out the other side and it's like you have a glue, you have a bond. And that doesn't mean any that stuff was all good or bad. It was both of those things, right? But it's like you go through and you go, wow, like we have a connection forever. Yep. And then you are initiated and you do feel a sense of purpose and pride. Those are all good things.
Yeah, I mean, and with that, some people definitely took it way too far. But when I was pledging, there was some hazing involved, but it was controlled. The whole idea is you rush to a fraternity, they sell you on it, then you have a pledge class of people who are getting in together, and then now they're putting you through all the stress in the world because they want you to bond together because you're showing that you guys can work as a team. You're a brotherhood. When you get initiated into the fraternity, now you're one of us because we've all been through the similar thing. And it didn't click to me at the time. You're like, they're yelling at us. I got to fill out this binder. I got to go on this trip. They call it a treasure hunt. I got to go to these different chapters. What's the point of it? And then at the very end, you realize, oh, this is what it was all for. It's coming together now. And the same thing is some of my pledge bros are still some of my best friends now because we went through that same struggle together. And of course, somebody at some other fraternity screws it up and they start chugging water and then somebody dies. And it's like, okay, you guys obviously took that way too far. There's a certain level.
Chico State, baby.
God, yeah. Chico State, man. Yeah, there's a way to do it, and then there's a way where you screw it up, and then that's what gets on the news. Look at what these fraternity guys did. Yeah, because these idiots over here did it completely the wrong way, but you do it the right way. Military example, same thing. you build that stress that makes better men in the future. My opinion, because that's how we've learned to cope with stress. But then and then people confuse that whole thing with toxic masculinity, which drives me nuts. Like, no, it's not. I mean, yes, there are examples of dudes who do stupid stuff. They're the outliers. If I told you right now that 99% of police officers in the country were good, would you accept that? Or would you say, it needs to be 100%?
Yeah, 99 works for me.
Exactly. But when I tell people there's about 800,000 law enforcement personnel in the entire country, and that means if 99% are good, there's still 8,000 idiots out there. Those are the ones that are going to get on the news because they did something stupid, and then they make the rest of us look bad. And now you're associating what one person somewhere did with what everybody else does, and you associate that together, which makes some of them say, well, geez, if they keep throwing the middle finger at me, then yeah, why would I want to go help them out and do my job? Because they don't appreciate me, because they're associating me with somebody clear across the country in a different states doing different things. And yeah, I'm not that same person. We can look at social media now as 40-year-olds and interpret what they're being said, but imagine being 16 and looking at all this stuff now. It's information overload for young dudes who don't know how to process it. And officially their mind's not even fully developed until they're 25, 26 years old. Yeah. So you're really interpreting the world through a lens that isn't even complete. And then we're seeing things like with school shooters and young men. I was telling somebody, they didn't believe me. I said, most of the crime around here, all the break-ins, it's all done by 13, 14-year-old boys because they have no direction. And they're trying to compete with other people. And this is what they see. There's no old school leadership to say, you got to do this, you can't be doing this stuff. Young friend, there's no male leadership anymore with some of these people. And it's sad that we're dealing with 12, 13-year-old kids who are doing the stupidest stuff because they don't know what it is they're actually doing. They're stealing cars, they're running over people, they're breaking into, carrying guns. It's like, you have no clue what you're doing, man.
I think you're right, though. It does come back to that positive male role model that's been removed from our society in a lot of ways. And I was walking the other day and I saw a sign, it was spray painted, and it said, "Stop men." And it stopped me in my tracks. I was like, man, what does that mean, first of all? But that's a pretty big statement. Stop men. Okay, so now men are wrong. And we go back to it. It's like, okay, so then a lot of men are going to go, well, then fuck it, I'm out of here. I'm not dealing with this. But we need good men. I don't really like that word, but good men to step in and say, okay, look, here's how you can be responsible. Here's how you can be your own person. Here's how you can be a good example. But we need mentors. We need initiation processes. We need men that are willing to be, an elder and say, hey, here's some wisdom I can impart on you. Here's some things I can share with you. Here's some things that are going to help you. My dad talks about it all the time. He talks about planting seeds. I love it. He's like, I'm planting seeds, and that requires patience because it might take 5 years or 10 years or 15 years for that seed to germinate and grow. But if you can do that, it's like, man, you can really impact someone's life. There's an employee I had he's leaving my gym and he's in his early 20s, and he did some things that I would do in my early 20s. It's like things were good. He's a big part of the community, and then it was like things got a little too good, and he ran. And I sat with him, and I usually don't tell people what to do. And I said, look, I did this a lot when I was in my 20s. And I know the pattern because this is what I would do. And I go, I want to tell you right now, I burned a lot of bridges in my life when I was in my 20s. And if I could go back, I would have done some of those things differently. And I was trying to plant a seed of you don't have to do this. This is a pattern that you've created that you run when things get too good. But man, as a mentor, as someone with more wisdom, because I can see further down the road than he can, I'm like, think about this. And next time you want to do this, is it worth it? And it's I'm not attached to if he takes that or not. I'm not attached if that seed landed, but I think it was. I think it was put into some fertile soil. And I think next time he comes along at a crossroads, he's going to go, man, I remember Nick. We had a good relationship. He gave me a good example of what it was like to be a mindful man, to be loving, to be a good partner, to have a good business. And I trust him because I don't think he was telling me something that was for his own good. I think he was telling me this for my own good. If I can plant that seed with him there, then the ripples that we'll have from that conversation, I have faith that are going to have a lot of impact in his life and other people's lives. And I think that's what we need more of, is men to be mentors. And then that state of the elder and plant seeds. You're doing it as a police officer. You're doing it with this call, right? With this podcast. And it's we got to connect with people and give them examples of different ways of being and give them some insight and perspective. But It takes discipline. It takes hard work. It takes hard conversations. It takes telling people the truth. Like these, again, all the positive aspects of masculinity that are healthy. Like, you're messing up, young buck. Let me tell you why. Right? Not that you're wrong. Not that I'm going to punish you, but like, let me tell you a different way to do it. And you're like, all right. And I'm thinking of the, the story of the two bulls, right? You know that one?
No.
Oh, it's an old one, but it's like there's two bulls. They look out over a pasture and there's a bunch of cows, and the young bull says, "Dad, let's run down there and let's fuck one of these bulls. Let's fuck one of these cows." And he's all excited, and then the father says to the young bull, he says, "Hey, why don't we walk down there? And then why don't we fuck them all?"
I love that one.
And I know it's a little brash, but it's the difference in it's wisdom. It's someone that's walked the path. It's someone that's going to say, "Hey, let's calmly, collectively, coolly go down, and then we'll have more impact there," right?
Yeah, and it's, again, trying to tell that to a young 20-year-old that's pumped up on testosterone and just wants the results now, because
exactly.
his friends think he thinks his friends have it. Realize that's all an illusion. They don't tell you that yet, but you really got to put the work in and focus on what you need to do to make yourself better. It's a lot to ask. You'd have told me that when I was 20, I was like, pound salt. I want the stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait until I'm 35 or 40. That's way too far. That's twice my life right now. What am I going to do in that 20 years between now and then? It's difficult for me. That's why I'm not in the business of trying to give young people advice, because they don't listen, because I wouldn't have listened at that age either. Best thing I can do is talk to people like you, get information out there. And if you're enjoying it and you like it and you want to listen more and be a part of that network, you can definitely do that. But I'll never sit here and tell you you're supposed to do A, B, and C. You can just learn through example. You see what I'm doing. Do you like what I'm doing? Do I not?
Exactly.
Take a little bit of what I did, take a little bit of what Nick's done, what somebody else has done, and make your own path. If I look back on how I sort of built my life now, it was never modeled after one person. It was a little bit from this person, from that person, from this person on TV who I never met, from this person who wrote that, whatever it is. It's taking these building blocks and forming my own life in a way that I could have never saw 20 years ago. The idea that I'd be sitting here talking to you, period, I never would have imagined it. Never thought that having a conversation like this where I get to pick your brain because I learned something new, because it helps me become a better person. Never would have thought that would have been something that I would even have wasted my time with, quote unquote. Like, I need the money and I need the house, I need all that stuff. Yeah, you can get all that stuff, and I've gotten some of that. Fizzles out after a while. Who am I trying to impress? I've long since given up trying to go to the gym to impress people with 18, 19-inch arms. Like, I don't care. I'm in there because I want to stay healthy and be fit and have a longer life, so I don't end up complaining about the pains in my body. One of the biggest things in our industry that gets people medically retired out is bad back, bad knees. You're sitting in a patrol car all day. You're eating bad. The weight pops up, and then I hate to say it, but it's sort of built into the pension. They sort of know that the odds are you're not going to live that long past the retirement age. So the funds work because we're not anticipating you doing that. So when you buck the trend and you take care of yourself, I was like, oh, okay, this person's like 90, 100 years old, and they're still collecting. We didn't anticipate that. You were supposed to have died at 70, yet you're still here, because you've learned what it takes to take care of yourself, and you can thrive longer, whatever industry that you have, and you have no idea what doors may open up down the future. The more you get to know people like yourself, the more you're going to find out what else is there that I'm missing, what else is there that I can make myself better, because I'm always learning, and you should always be learning too. There should never be a finish line. I've checked the boxes. Somebody told me that in college. He was 21. It's like, I've done it all. Like, even then I knew, no, you haven't. You want to get married now? Fine, that's up to you. But the idea of saying I've done it all at 21, you may have done a couple things cool, but you definitely haven't done everything. So, he's happy now. Good for him. I'm not taking anything away from him. There we go. But the idea that you can check a box and that's it. That's what leads to the complacency. That leads to the guy sitting at home with his feet up, watching football on a Sunday, which is not bad. But if that's all you're doing because you don't want to do anything else, and you're just drinking beer and eating bad and think I've accomplished all the things I'm supposed to with the wife, kids, house, you got to work on that stuff, man. That does not, you don't get it once and that's it. You have to continuously work to build that out, because people will challenge you in ways that you can't understand. And then afterwards, when you find out, it's going to be too late. You got to put the work in, man.
Yeah, I'm thinking of something my dad would always tell me, and I'm so grateful for it. And this is, that mentorship, right? He would say, look, he would go, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. I'm not going to do that. That's not my job. He goes, but what I think you should do is you should find out kind of what your line is in life. And then he goes, and then do your best to not cross it too much. And I always remember that. I was in my 20s. I was a wild man. I was an absolute wild man, but that stuck with me. And it probably saved my life a couple times. He goes, and I'm not even going to tell you where to put the line. It was so good. He goes, look, He goes, have a line. I'm not going to tell you where to put it. And he goes, then do your best. If you cross it, don't go too far. Right. But I look back and I go, it was that support of someone sharing with me some insights on how I could live my own life on my own terms. And as you're talking, what I was seeing was we're all our own blank canvas, right? We're a blank canvas. So our job, if you choose to, if you want to live a really great life, and I like to use the word lifescaping, like landscaping, it's like you're a blank canvas. So take something you've learned from us today. Take something you learned from Joe Rogan. Take something you learned from Brene Brown. Take something you learned from like the Dalai Lama. And then you take all of that together and then you paint your own canvas, right? And it's not fair for me or you to tell anyone how to paint that or what it should look like. Now we can give them insights. Hey, did you think about doing this? What about that? But you're your own canvas and paint it however you want to paint it. And that's how you'll create a life that's unique, right? That's beautiful, successful, healthy, impactful. And I would say, if you've taken one or two things that we've shared today, if they work for you, use them. If they don't, throw them out, and paint your canvas on your own terms. Like that's how you'll find that ikigai. That's how you find that passion. That's how you find that joy. And that's how you'll impact people without even knowing. Like this conversation is going to impact someone that you and I will never meet.
Probably.
And that's so rad. Where someone's going to walk up to you in a year and be like, man, that one conversation changed my life. Like what? Really? Who? When? How? That's what we're doing. So that's kind of the last thing I'm seeing is like paint your own picture, your own canvas, like however you want, and find the right people to help you, especially men out there listening. Like find a mentor, find a coach, find a program that's going to challenge you to grow, and you'll be really surprised like how quickly you can make some massive shifts.
Exactly. And I think anybody listening to this, as much as of a great conversation as we have so far, I'd be the first one to tell them, don't listen to everything that we say and take it as 100% applicable to your life. Because you could be living in Kansas and you have a different mindset and different lifestyle, different environment that me and you may not know about. You could live in India, could live in England, could live in South Africa. And I don't know what life is like over there. I don't know what your goals are. I don't know what your environment is. So some of this may not apply to you directly, but some of it might. But as you live in San Francisco and you're a 40-year-old dude in the same boat that we in, maybe more of it will apply to you because you can relate to us more. So, and I think that's one mistake that people make. They'll listen to one podcast and everything that they say has to work in my life. And then when it doesn't, it's, they were wrong. Nope. I know some of it might, some of it won't. I don't know your situation or your environment, but we're just giving you the foundation to think about stuff in ways that you may not have done so before. Well, we're getting long on time here, but I do want to ask you a couple of things related to the business. We got so much into the men's health because it's important and we know we were going to talk about it. But going back a little bit to your industry now and where it's leading, one of the first things I wanted to ask you is, in your experience, what have been some of the three biggest failures that you've seen, either from clients who don't stick with the program, or maybe from yourself when it comes to building a business that, you know what, I really fell on my rear end on that one?
Man, we don't have enough time for all the failures.
Give me your top three, especially ones that people may not have, like, really, that's a thing?
Well, one, I would say failure is imperative. It's a prerequisite for success. And if you're not willing to fail, like, you're not willing to be successful. And some of the best things I've learned in the fitness industry specifically are from mentors where I learned what not to do. I don't want to get into specifics, but that's one of the main reasons I opened my own company. I saw so many places doing things I was like, this doesn't work for me. So, one is like knowing what you stand for and your values, right? But so on the practitioner side, it's not all roses. Like, it's not what Instagram shows of, you got a six pack and you're going to get clients. Like, if you build your six pack, they will come. It's kind of like what's out there, right?
Really?
The fitness wellness industry is so competitive and it is so challenging. And if you can be successful in that field, you can be successful almost anywhere. You have to understand marketing, lead nurturing, sales, service, retention, finance. Like it's massive. Plus rents, employees, like the amount that goes into it is extensive. Like, it's a lot easier to be a solopreneur. It's a lot easier to be, I'm a personal trainer and I train Mike. You want to step into the game of owning your own health and fitness company, like, know what you're getting into. And I'm not trying to scare anyone off, but I want to be like clear, like, it's a tough industry. The average the average gym owner, any guess on how much the average gym owner makes per year?
Profit?
Yeah, how much they actually take home?
20,000.
Yeah, $30,000 is what the average gym owner takes home a year. You can make more than that working at McDonald's. Like, that's insane. And we look at these people, oh, they got a business, they got a logo, they got Instagram, they're doing it. It's like these guys are working 60, 70, and ladies, 80 hours a week. And they're making 30 grand a year. Like crazy. So that's one of my big fails is like jumping from being a solo practitioner to having a company and not understanding the depth that it takes to make it work. Like you've heard the saying, like what got you here won't get you there. One of my biggest failures for a long time up until the last year or two was like I was doing everything. Me and my brother were coaching, selling, training, doing retention. It's like that's a surefire way to run yourself into the ground. And then we'll need health and fitness coaches to take care of us. So that was the first big mistake, is not delegating and not empowering other people to do the work. Like thinking that we were so important and so good that no one else can do it as good as us. That's a huge piece, right? The other thing too is, and I would say this for any trainer listening, being the best trainer isn't that important. Like I know a lot of great trainers that don't have great businesses because they care so much about what the bicep's doing, or how perfect someone's squatting. It's like the normal person doesn't care. They want to move better, they want to eat better, and they want to feel better. If you can do those three things, they don't care if you tell them to cluck like a chicken. Like if it works, they'll do it. So don't be so attached to your method and your way of doing it. Be more attached and interested in like, how do you service the people that are in front of you? If you can do that, you write your own paycheck. And then on the client side, one of the biggest fails I see is it's kind of twofold. One, it's people coming up to the threshold, right? So I'll have people come into my studio that are 300 pounds, right? Their health is deteriorating, they're miserable. And I'll go, okay, here's our program. It's a year program at least. And if someone's at that weight, it's a year program short. Here's how we're going to do it. And then they'll go, you know what? Like, just, I'm going to pass. And they'll find whatever excuse to pass, right? And it's like, okay, interesting. Maybe that person needs to gain another 50 pounds before they come back, right? And again, no judgment on it. Like they're not in enough pain yet to make the choice. But then someone will come in and they're 301 pounds. I had this recently. And I'm like, so what was it that made today, the day you came in, to change your life? I don't know, man. 300 pounds was fine. And 301 is like, I'm not having this anymore. Like, okay, here's this program. You want to do it? Like, I'm in. Let's do it. And it's like, I sit with both of those people all the time and I'm like, what's the difference? And I think the difference is the person who knows that the pain they're in, they're no longer willing to deal with it, right? And even though they don't know what's on the other side, that is a better option than what they currently have. So to kind of bring that full circle, I think the biggest challenge I would see in people coming in to make changes in their health and fitness, it's like you don't have to wait until you're at that inflection point where it's like life or death. It's like, get honest with yourself faster. Get honest with yourself sooner. Like the trajectory of my life is off track. Like, get it back on course today. Don't wait 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, like the police officers you talk about. I don't like the word mistake, but it's like opportunity to change. It's like, get honest now with what's not working and invest in changing your life. And people vote with whatever they value like the least. So like if you value your time the least, that's what you're going to spend. If you value your money the least, you'll spend that. If you value your health the least, you'll spend that. So like get clear on like, what do you value? Do you value your time, your money, or your health? And you may have to sacrifice your time and your money to create health, at least at first. Right now, when you get to the places where you and I are, like it's built into our life. So like now we don't have to really give up time or money, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm saying on that. It's like, get honest quicker with yourself. And like, if you're off trajectory, fix it today. Like find someone now that's going to help you get there. Take one action like that's going to get you closer to that transformation, because the longer you wait, the more you're like a cruise ship. And it's like, now it's going to take more time, energy, and money to get you back on course. And sometimes like it could be too late. So that would be it. It's like, get honest faster with yourself, and that, it's okay to get help. It's okay to make a choice, and it's okay to change.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you brought that up and you put it that way, because as you know, I've talked to several personal trainers on the show over time, and one of the things that's come up in different conversations, some on camera, some off camera, was that I get people to come in and then they just fall away, and I don't know why. They said that they wanted to put the work in, they spent the money, on the program. They invested in it, but then they just stopped showing up. And then we can't figure out, is it us as trainers, is it the environment, or is it the person? And I said, well, I can't speak to anybody else other than me. I can tell you from my point of view, I had this when I was 18 years old. I just looked in the mirror and said, I need to get my act together. I need to go to the gym. I had no clue what I was doing. I had no clue. I just went there and started mimicking other people. There's some good and bad with that because you can easily get the wrong advice if you're not paying attention. But the drive in myself was that I needed to be a better person because what I'm looking in the mirror wasn't cutting it for me. And that was, 22 years ago. If I'm being honest, it probably took me till about age 29, 30 years old before I got in a routine at the gym where I'm like, I had to stay committed to it. And I can't explain if it's just getting older and some chemicals change in your body where you're like, well, this has to happen. Because prior to that, it was, I'd go, but then I wouldn't go, or I can eat this now and I'm younger. And you give yourself all the excuses, but then something clicks where you say, I need to be a better person. And for some people that I've heard works is they need to be a better person for somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
One of the stories that I've heard is grandfather comes into this person's gym and he says, you know what? I don't care about the biceps or the chest or whatever. I want to be able to pick up my grandson. Like that was what motivated him. He's like, as long as I can, bend my knees and pick him up and go play with them, I will do whatever you need me to do. I don't care about if I can bench 250 or whatever it is, although it's impressive benching 250. And like that was the motivation. And you realize in your industry as a trainer that there has to be that psychological level. You have to find a way to tap into a client's needs. What is really motivating them to get here? Because you're going to find, this better than I do, it's not the 6-pack abs that the bodybuilders have. It's not the big chest so I can impress all the women if you're a guy. There's something deeper that's getting the people motivated to keep coming back and forth. And what's probably some of the, because I have several people who are doing this now or they're about to, where they want to start their own gym or their own online fitness business. And I'm like, yeah, you're getting into an area where it's such a competitive environment. What sets you apart from the others? So without maybe giving away a lot of your personal secrets, what's the biggest tip that you can give them about connecting with the right type of clients and knowing the clients that you should be aiming your marketing for?
But one quick thing on what you're talking about before, is getting people connected to their why. And I would call it what's their deep why or a driver. So for that grandfather, nothing mattered for him to take care of himself until he had a grandson. It's like, and now he has a deep why. And that why has got to be greater than their why not. And eventually you want to be like, my why is greater than my why not. And that would be the habits. This is what I do. Habits win over your intentions all the time is a line I heard recently. So it took you 10 years to build your habits up so that regardless of your intentions, like even if I don't want to do it today, I'm doing it. So that's at play there. With someone building a business, marketing 101, right? One is understand who's your ideal client. Okay, like who's the person you want to work with, right? I know for me at this point, it's very ethereal. I want to work with someone who wants to transform their life and is ready to do it. Now that's 15 years of coaching, right? I don't care who you are, what you're into. Like, you want to sit down and change your life? Like, I'm here for it. Like, you're into it, I'm into it. Okay, now that's not where I would suggest most of us starting. Most of us start with who you were. Okay, what I mean by that is if you're 30, think about who you were 5 years ago and what were the challenges and the struggles you were going through with your own health and your fitness. And then what you're going to, because now you're an expert in that transformation, right? Now go find those people that are working with that problem or pain points better. So really what I've noticed is I'm pretty much coaching myself of like 5 or 10 years ago. When I was saying I was having that conversation with one of my staff members, I was talking to myself. That's why I was an expert in that field. Like I did that at 25. So go coach the problems or the pains that you've worked yourself through because you are an expert in that, right? So that's finding your ideal client. Then find out what is your ideal client's pain, right? The greater the pain, the easier the sell and the more you can charge, okay? So the grandfather who wants to bend down to pick up his grandson, that's a lot of pain, and maybe not physical pain, but emotional pain, right? And then that person's going to be willing to pay whatever the program is. They also will stay with it and they will be better clients because they have bigger pain points, right? So who's your client? What's their pain point? And then 3, what is the result that they receive by hiring you? Okay. If you can put those 3 things together, and you can, then that's what you market. And you'll see it all the time. It's actually not hard to find. It's like, I'm looking for 5 frustrated dads who are successful who want to get fit in 60 days, right? So there it is.
Right.
Who's the client? What's their pain point? And how do you give them the ultimate results, right? You could do those three things. That's all you say. Don't say anything else, and only talk to that person, only talk to that avatar, and only talk to their pain point. You could do those 3 things. That's how you start to write your own paycheck. And then on the back end, then get good. Get good at your craft and like be fucking good. Cause like there's so many bad trainers out there and coaches, and everyone's a yoga teacher now. It's like in a weird way, it almost sounds counterintuitive. It's like a saturated market, but it's not saturated with excellent practitioners. So like if you want to stand out, be excellent. Like be excellent and just stay with it for 10 years, because in 5 years, all the people that just got certified as yoga teachers, and now everyone's getting certified as coaches, they're not going to be around.
It's like real estate agents.
Dude, just stay with it, because in 10 years, you're going to be so good that people are going to be coming to you like, how are you this good? It's like, I've been doing this for 10,000 hours. What do you think? Like, so get good at your craft and like devote yourself to it, whatever it is. And if you put those together, you're unstoppable. And then, okay, now open your own company. Now open your own methodology. Now open your own training. But like, you see all these like 25-year-old life coaches out there. It's like,
what life have you lived? No offense, dude, but maybe you have.
I say you can't be coaching people. I started coaching people at 30, but like, I didn't know what I was talking about. But I was teaching people that were in line with that version of me, that whatever knowledge I had was great for them. Now would my clients now, they wouldn't have hired me from 10 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they look at me when I say that, I'm like, you wouldn't have hired me. Like, you would have been my teacher. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's the level of what we're playing now.
Yeah, it's like what you just said is a microcosm of what's happening here, because we both talked about our own individual podcasts, and we know that it's not going to go get viral overnight. If it does, that's like hitting the lottery.
Yeah,
it's about building the foundation now for a ground game that's going to last you 10 plus years. When I look back on this 10 years from now, even looking back in 2 years from where I started from, it's a big difference. What's this going to look like in 10 years? I don't know, but all I know is I have to keep watering the plant. And this is where I think you can speak to this more as a business owner, is if you put all your eggs in this basket and you want to, let's say, start your own gym, but your finances are completely tied to this entity that you're creating now, you're setting yourself up for a dangerous position where now you're depending on this to pay for your bills. And if you do that, it may cause you to do things within your business that you really don't want to do, but you're chasing that dollar because I got bills to pay. If I created this podcast here because I just wanted money, it would cause me to say things and do things on here that I don't like, and it's not me, but I know it's going to generate a lot of traction in the algorithm, which could lead to monetization of the channel faster. But then I become known as that person. So when I want to try and change it later on, say, okay, I've seen the light, I'm going to do something different. Well, they all know you as the person that was talking smack about this. That's what they signed up for. Now you found Jesus or whatever, and you want to do something different. Well, now I don't trust you. Now that's not the person who I am. So I think if you're going to start any kind of business whatsoever, that financial aspect, which I'd like you to talk about, has to be set aside somewhere where you're not going to let that money influence you, whether that means you make sacrifices in where you live, the cars you drive, how much money you spend on groceries, whatever it is, to allow you to build this up organically to what you want to be in 10 years in the future. So what can you speak about that side of it?
Yeah, and something I saw when you were talking about, which is such a cool realization, at least for me, is like when you said like, I don't want that success right now, or like I don't want to go viral. It's like, you know why? Because it wouldn't be good enough. Like 2 years into the podcast game, like you're not good enough yet. But like, and that's not a knock. It's like, it's almost like, what is it, 80 or 90% of people that win the lottery go broke?
Oh yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like, because they don't have the foundational skill set to be ready for that success. So,
the NBA players who get that big paycheck and then they blow it 10 years later.
Exactly. So it's like you like having patience of like watering this garden so that when it does blow up in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, it's like, okay, now I'm ready to present this. People are like, how is this so good? It's like, been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah, here's what you didn't see behind the scenes, or you know those episodes that have been there for 10 years? Yeah, if you watch that now, you're going to see why I am where I'm at now.
Exactly.
So I think it's great, but if someone wants to do that business, what have been some of the best tips that you have about getting yourself financially ready to take on that commitment to help out some of the audience members?
Yeah, I mean, one is like, be smart, do your research. I notice a lot of business owners don't know their numbers, right? Like you should be able to know like, how much does it cost to acquire a client? How long do they stay with you? What's the what's the cost involved in serving that client? Like, if you don't know those things, like, you don't know your business. So it's like, and what I did and what I suggest to a lot of people is, if you have a full-time job, stay with that, right? And then on the side, build your hustle, build your side hustle. So like, if you're working in a company right now and you want to get into training, let's just say, for example, don't quit your corporate job. Like, unless you just have to, like, unless you're like that place where I was 15 years ago when you're like, you're thinking about like blowing up your entire life.
Yeah.
If you're not in that space, stay with it and then gradually grow your business. Get a client, be with them for 6 months. Okay, then get some referrals. And then and what I did, and you don't have to do it this way, but it's like, once I had maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 personal clients, that's when I left the job that I had full time. Cause it was like, okay, now I know I can't grow my side hustle anymore. Same with the podcast. I can't grow it anymore because there's no more energy I can put into it. And then that's when you jump, and it's like, okay, now you have a foundation, right? It's like, okay, now you're making $5,000 a month with your private clients or whatever. Okay, do I have enough to pay my bills and to eat? If you can do those things, then like, you can hustle. Like, you can keep driving, you can keep going. But like, if you don't have your basic needs met, that's when you can start doing some funny stuff with clients and with money, right? So it's like, get yourself to a place where it's like, okay, now I'm ready to go full time into this thing, right? And then start to learn, okay, now how do I charge my clients? Like, right? Like, what are some ways that I get them on auto billing? How do I understand my taxes? Like, how do I understand my expenses? Build some foundational understanding, right? There's some great books out there too you can read. One's what's the one I'm thinking of?
Millionaire Next Door.
No, it's Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh, that.
Read
Yeah.
Rich Dad Poor Dad if you don't know that one. There's another one out there too. The E-Myth. That's an excellent book for entrepreneurs. The E-Myth. That's about like moving from a practitioner to a manager to a business owner. Like, start with some of those things. Money First. That's Profit First. Excuse me. Profit First is an excellent book for any up and coming entrepreneur, especially in the service industry. But like, I guess my point is, build a foundation, right? And understand some basic things about numbers and money. And then know, like, okay, what's your number that you need to be at to be stable, right? And then once you get that, like, then you can start to put some gas on the fire. And then you can start to be a little riskier. It's like, or find a business partner where like, you're really good at training, they're good at finance, because like, I will tell you right now, I've seen so many people that are like, oh, I like fitness, so I'm going to open a fitness company. I just talked to a guy, I won't say who, but it's a failing gym in San Francisco, and he called me to buy his gym a couple weeks ago. And this thing's a dumpster fire. And I'm like, why did you get into this business? He goes, well, I liked fitness and I like marketing, so I figured I'd put them together.
I think I know who it is.
In the back of my mind, I was like, now the guy's a couple $100,000 in debt. And I'm like, what did but that's buying into not having all this foundational. So I guess my point is, get some foundational skills around sales, get some foundational skills around marketing, get some foundational skills around finance. And then when you've got your stable foundation, like Maslow's hierarchy, you're eating and you got shelter, now step your game up, right? And do it in a way that's smart, because you can if you go slow and you go smart, you're going to outlast other people that are burning out. Yeah.
You're building your clientele, you're building your image, you're building who you are. And if you don't know who you are and why you do it, then why the hell would anybody else know or care?
Yeah.
And though people are smart, most people are smart.
People around here are smart.
Yes, they will walk into your gym and they will know within a second or two, is this a place that's my kind of vibe? And I've seen so many gyms around here go under that. I thought, hey, it was a cool concept, but you walk in there and it's missing something. I couldn't put my finger on it, but you can even tell in the owner's passion, like, you're missing something. You need somebody else to come and balance it out to see a different side of it. But, if you want to hold to it, then you do what you got to do. And some of them are not here anymore. It's, having the passion for fitness is one thing, but the business side of it comes into it, and knowing exactly why you're doing it, because that why is going to power you through all those dark days when you're not making any money, when you're working 70, 80 hours a week and you're 100%. Getting thankless. You won't have clients in your gym for a class. What is it that's driving you? What's pushing you to keep going forward to power through all that? The dog days here, there were some episodes in the beginning got no views. A lot of work, a lot of editing to get no views. That's part of the struggle for me. I understood that. And because I wasn't tied for me financially to this, I was prepared for that struggle. Like, I'm going to take it on the chin. I know it. I don't care. It's part of it. It will get better. And it does with time. So I'm glad that you said that. We're going a little long. There's just one more thing I want to ask you, and then we'll wrap it up. So we're in December now. And as somebody who's a gym owner, you're about mental awareness, physical fitness, this is the time of the year where people start saying, you know what? Holidays are here. I got New Year's coming up. I'm going to change things January 1. And then a lot of people, it doesn't end up working out that way. So what are some of the biggest tips you can give for people to either keep or maintain their fitness goals in the holiday season when we're all at the family's houses eating prime rib and turkey? And then when New Year's comes and you want to make that change, what is it that you've seen that's worked for people to keep them successful in maintaining that? And what are some of the reasons why people, pull the rug out from underneath?
I think it's a lot of what we've talked about today. It's like understanding what your why is, right? There's a crazy stat. It's like 80% of people that join a gym in January are gone by the end of Q1. It's like, well, there's a reason. It's like they're not signing up because they have a why. They're signing up because, oh, this is what I do every year around this time. So something I've been on my gym about for the last couple weeks already, it's like the holidays aren't an excuse to throw away your dreams and your goals. Like, what's more important, like having another piece of pie or that goal of changing your life? And I've not knocking eating pie. Like, I had 3 pieces of cheesecake at Thanksgiving that my wife made, but it's like, what's more important to you? Like having all the drinks and gaining 5 pounds over the next six weeks, or understanding what your reason is, understanding your why, and then continuing to focus on that. So it's like, to me, that we got to get, it comes down to that, right? It comes down to like what's important and what matters. And if you can touch that, then you're not going to binge. You're not going to indulge. Like, you're going to have a balanced life. Like, I love to drink. I love to eat. Like, those are part of the way I live. And I take care of myself in a way that affords me the ability to do that. So it's like, understand that you don't have to throw away your goals because it's Christmas time. I think it's just like, that's just so ingrained in our minds now. Like, this is what we do. It's like, to me, it's a cop out. Like, understand what's important and stick to it and focus on it. And don't beat yourself up if you fall off a little bit. Starting now is like, what's the one thing you can do today to improve your health and wellness? And what's one action that's going to do that? Like, okay, if I'm going to go out, you and I are going to go out and, let's say, watch the Niners game and eat and drink a bunch of beers.
Yeah, and watch them lose.
Yeah, well, maybe we go exercise first, and then we go do that, right? It's like, it can be an and. It doesn't have to be an or, but, and then, in terms of starting, like, I would say start now. Like, we're in the first week of December, get a gym membership today. Like, don't wait until January. Like, don't wait until the end of February. Like, it's not, the statistics show it's not going to work. 80% won't be there. So, like, if you're listening to this, like, come to my gym tribe. I'll give you December for free. Like, I don't care. Like, just show that you're committed and that you're ready to make a change. And like, that's how you'll get ahead of it. And that's how you'll be successful.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then you take away as much risk as you can from the person when you get like that 1 month free. You're not paying for anything, but I want you here. I want you to see the environment. I want you to be around people who have decided to make that change in their life. And that's what's going to get people to say, well, and if that guy's doing it and he looks like he's my age and he started out from where I was, okay, I'm kind of getting into my feelers here. And they end up being committed for that. And it's not malfeasance. You're not tricking people, but you're exposing them to what it is that they really want, but they can't verbalize, or they're too embarrassed sometimes to say, yeah, I don't like the way I look in the mirror. Especially guys, we have a hard time saying that. Maybe to other guys who do.
And it's like, sometimes you need to upgrade your friends. Sometimes you need to upgrade your community. So if you get around people, this works both ways. If you get around people that are drinking, guess what you're going to do? You're going to drink. No judgment. If you get around people that are prioritizing their health and their fitness, guess what you're going to do? You're going to start to prioritize your health and your fitness, because we're communal, we're tribal. So we will follow the people around us. So like, if you want to make a change, get around people who are either making the change or who have made it. And that's going to be how you set yourself up for success. And like our whole talk today, that health, wealth, peace, happiness, that's all. It doesn't matter what area we're talking about. All the same rules apply.
You can get there, but it will take a long time and it will take a lot of work, and you're not going to see the results right away. All the people who've been successful have never seen the results right away. And those dark days when you're at rock bottom, like, I'm doing all this for what? That's when you really got to push yourself farther. And then look back in your life 10 years from now, wow, that really did work.
That's when most people give up. They give up at that inflection point. So like, push through, and like, that's where you're going to reap the rewards.
Exactly. Well, Nick, thank you for coming on. This was a great conversation. I'm really glad to get engaged with the whole men's health thing. Surprisingly, you may not believe this, but that's some society doesn't like to talk about a lot. People think that doesn't exist. There's men's that there really is a thing. And that's why you hear it in the locker rooms all the time when guys talk, when it's only guys in a similar environment. It is a real thing, but it's up to us to make sure we put the information out there to say, yeah, you want to get yourself up. It will take a lot of hard work. you're probably not there yet, but you got to put the time in because you will reap the benefits 10 years down the line. No one wants to hear that. I got to wait 10 years, but you will get there. It will take time and you will be a better person for it. But Nick, where can people find you? Where's your gym at? And what's the best way to contact you?
Let's say start today, improve tomorrow. That's a new line I've been working with. I like it.
Great. We patented it right here.
There we go. A couple different things. So one, my gym in San Francisco is called Tribe Fitness Yoga and Coaching. We're over in North Beach. Just hit up tribefitsf.com. Best way to check us out is we have a 6-week challenge program that we start most people with. And if you go through the whole challenge, you can actually earn it all to be free and then have a big credit to use towards a membership. So it's a really cool way to try us out, make a ton of changes. We usually have people lose 8 to 15 pounds in that 6-week program. So that's an excellent way. If you're interested in any of like the one-on-one personal coaching stuff I do or some of the podcast stuff I do, it's nickpalladino.co. That's my website. And the website I run is called Conscious Conversations.
Gotcha.
So I think those 2 ways, look, Tribe for fitness and then nickpalladino.co for more mindset and, the yoga stuff we've been talking about.
And the best Instagram handle is?
Nick Palladino-King.
King, right?
No, it's just Nick Palladino-King at the on Instagram. No hyphen.
Well, I will put all the links for all your content information in the description of the episode. And yeah, this is a really great thing. If you're living in San Francisco and you love what Nick and me we're talking about today, please check out Tribe Fitness. If you look at his Instagram profile, you'll see what I'm talking about there. The culture that he's created with his clients is something that, a lot of people are looking for, but like anything else in the world, you may not know the first place to look because you get so inundated with a lot of the fitness models out there. And I must buy his program because he's got 3% body fat. I understand the temptation with that, but let's come and talk to real people here who are trying to help you become the best person that you can possibly be. So Nick, thank you again for coming out. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the episode and you're watching on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with somebody that you feel will get a lot of benefit from this. And if you're listening to this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of the other podcast platforms, please like the video, leave a comment because the algorithms work differently for podcast only audio as they do for YouTube. YouTube gets a lot of credit when you share it. Podcast audio, usually if you leave a comment, it kind of figures out that people like it. And the best way that you can help out the channel, in case you're interested, is just simply watching the YouTube video and sharing the episode. The more people watch it and the more watch time that I get for each episode, the more YouTube will recognize that people are enjoying it, the more they will spread it out to a wider audience, and the faster that this channel can become monetized, which will really help me out to get more guests and buy more equipment. But thank you everybody for watching and listening, and Nick, thank you again for coming out.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Awesome, man. It was a great time. Have a good day, everybody. Take care.